will be in person attendees at this evening's work session. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Allison Lasan, Angie Cox, Christy Hassett, and Jenny Prosnick. Ms. Sells will be late. I've asked board member Ms. Cox if she would lead us in prayer.
Please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for providing us the opportunity to meet in person and surround us with your love and support for our district and the kids in Texas. We know this has been a trying year for all of us, but we appreciate the support you've given us. We appreciate our leadership team here in the district, and we appreciate everyone who is championed for the children of Texas. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Pledge of the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Shall I read the vision statement?
Oh, no, I'll just talk about
the
cornerstone.
Dr. Rogers is going to talk about the cornerstones.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So, of course, we have 4 cornerstones, and the most important, we all know, is student learning. But the one that we picked for tonight, I create an environment optimal for learning, and we differentiate instruction for all students. And I'm not for sure that there's a better year to make a point of all the differentiation that we've done for students, including then trying to do all of it virtually too. And so the folks behind me are absolutely, heroes in my mind, principals and leadership team and other central administration folks for pulling off a great thing. So anyway.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. We have no speakers for this evening. Next item, discussion item part 1, Dr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So, it seems so long ago that we started this process for this year, and we talked about our mantra was going to be flexible and nimble, and yet we really didn't know how flexible and nimble we might have to be. And so we're here to talk about the calendar and about the waiver, missed school day waiver. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Fitzhugh and Dr. Miller to come up, because certainly they've done a lot of work on both as far as research and so on. But so let's talk about the missed school day waiver first. So here we were plugging along. I'm extremely proud of the flexibility that our staff has shown, ready to pivot really with very little notice. When we added minutes to the school day back in July, we really didn't know how long it would take us to pivot from in-person to remote. And, if you had asked me back then to look in a crystal ball, I would have told you there's no way that by March we would have only gone remote with 4 campuses to this point. I mean, I think it's phenomenal and fortuitous. And then, of course, here comes the week of February 16th through the 19th. And, most of you weren't on the board when I was interim superintendent before I was named a superintendent, but that's the year of the Super Bowl in Arlington. And, one of the things I had to do was call school for 4 days. I guess that was a really good test for me. And
there were some others.
There's always tests, but then who could have understood the magnitude of what happened the week of the 16th through the 19th? I mean, I don't think any of us, even when we thought about, bad weather to think that it affected all 254 counties in the state of Texas, from the Panhandle all the way to the tip right next to Mexico to the Gulf Coast. I mean, and then the amount of damage they're talking about that's happened to people's homes and businesses of somewhere in the range of $20 billion worth, worse than Hurricane Harvey. And still, I was amazed. Late last week, I was just crossing paths with someone in this building who still didn't have water to their home. I mean, a week plus later. And so, if you remember the notice that we sent to staff when we knew that bad weather was coming that Friday before, we reminded staff and students, hey, take your devices home, because if we have to, we'll pivot to remote learning. And yet, how can you pivot to remote learning when every other person's electricity is going on and off on, rolling blackouts, and then if they have electricity, they might not have water. And so of course, initially TA provided some guidance on these days, and hey, we'll let you have 3 days of bad weather days that you don't, or miss school day waiver, and then they extended it because it was just such a massive effect across our state. And so, we certainly believe that we need to apply and ask for the waiver. So I'm going to let Dr. Fitzhugh, if you have any questions about the waiver. She's the person that's done the most research on it, but it's not something that we have to file tonight or whatever. The resolution that Ms. Bay created gives me the authority to do it, but certainly we're not going to do it if y'all aren't in favor of that. But it does give us some flexibility, and I don't know of any district that I've talked to my colleagues about that's not going to take advantage of it. I mean, why would you not? Dr. Fitzhugh, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, or...
I don't. I think you covered all the background of it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to be here to answer them.
So, Mr. Miller, our first thing is we'd like to discuss the waiver. So, if you would just ask.
Mrs. Hassett, I'll go first.
I have no questions. Can you remind me how many days we had banked up until February 16th?
So I believe we're at 5.39. Well, 5.5, because the missed school day waiver. Anyways, we're a little over 5.
Okay.
On the missed school day waiver, Ms. Prosnick, we don't get to count all the minutes that we're currently going extra.
Right.
There's a limit, and so that's why it changes from 5.5 to 5.39, I think.
Thank you.
Kind of rotate here.
Yep.
I like it. Mix it up a little bit, Mr. Miller. So my question would be, what would be the cons to it, or, pros or cons? I don't think there would be any, but, why would somebody not do it, I guess, is my question.
I can't think of a reason that somebody would not do it. The only con, is that we're not getting our full minutes for it. We had 460, we're getting 420, but that's not a problem for us in terms of our overall calendar. So there's not really a con that I can see.
Do we have the presentation? Do they have the presentation? Guys, why don't you put, and do one of y'all have the clicker?
I have a clicker.
And you have one, too.
Okay. So just a few reminders prior to COVID, and this really goes to Ms. Prosnick's question. We've always banked since 2015, I think, was the first year we started having to count minutes, 75,600. We've always had a few extra days, and that's because, if you had a week like February 16th, if you don't have a couple extra days, then you're going to be adding minutes for the rest of the year or going longer. So, reminder, we started with 8.5 bank days. We used one for November 3rd, Election Day. We used one for President's Day to make that a holiday for students and staff. And then we used one for March, which is where we got the 5.5. And so that's, And so the missed school days waiver is really, the discussion and decision that we need some input on. And like I said, the resolution actually covers that, and I know that's a later discussion, but anyway. I think, Ms. Cox, when you ask about pros and cons, there's a con of, okay, should you or should you not make up some lost instructional days? I think that's a big question. I think it's absolutely a legitimate question. My answer to that in this circumstance is if there's ever a time to try to, as one of my parents said, wrap a bow on a year and be done with it, COVID along with Snowmageddon, if that doesn't qualify, I don't know what does. And that, and that's really, but I think that is a con, that's a fair question.
I don't have any questions.
I don't think I'm going to ask any questions on this item because I think it's going to get, we'll pile it together with the next item, which might be a little more lively discussion.
Sure.
Dr. Rapp, so the review of the 2021 academic calendar, or Dr. Rogers?
Yeah, and I'm really probably the person that's going to keep going. So here we go. And I think you have this presentation. Do they also have the table or?
No, I think we sent that to them ahead of
Okay,
time.
you
They
were
should
sent-
have it digitally.
The table of the two calendars side by side? Did they get that table? Okay, yes, thank you.
Oh, is that in here?
I printed it.
Oh, you printed it, of course you
I
did.
think everyone has it but me, but anyway. We've got the person that,
Christy
I printed
printed it,
this
she
from home.
printed it.
we have the person who created it, so she'll answer your questions. So, this is just a little more on the missed school day. You can see the 420 minutes. That's why we get to 5.39 on that slide, Ms. Prosnick, versus the 5.5. So, and it still does, our recommendation is to maintain April 26th still is a bad weather day. That was built in at the start. Certainly that would be an option. The board could, you have bad weather days for bad weather, so that would be an option the board could absolutely use. So, is there any more discussion regarding the missed school days waiver before we move on? We're good? Okay, so let's talk about the third 9 weeks and so due to bad weather, February 16th through the 19th, the third 9 weeks currently, if we leave it on March 5th, the third 9 weeks has 36 days. And the fourth 9 weeks has 49 days. And of course, we're going to talk to you about the end of school later. What I really need from the board, as you might can imagine.
Dr. Rogers, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Excuse me, Dr. Rogers. I've been alerted there's an issue with.
We're going to take a recess at 6:19 p.m. until we get the live stream back up. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Let's reconvene the meeting at 6:28 p.m. I'd like to make a motion that we move to discuss, because of technology reasons, that we move to discussion items part 2. Could I have a second? Ms. Hassett? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Dr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. We apologize, those of you that are not able to join us. We're working on it, but we're going to move along with some other items. We'll come back to the calendar discussion later. So, Dr. Rapp, we have behavior interventionist update.
Yes, so you have in your folders a PowerPoint that we'll be going through this evening for you to use to follow along as well. I appreciate Ms. Clark and Dr. Talbert being here just to give, we've been providing a behavior interventionist update for the last couple of years, but we decided to add a special ed component to it tonight. So thank you both, and I'll start with Rebecca Clark.
Thank you so much.
All right, so just kind of as a reminder, and I don't have control, so we can go to that next slide. Thank you, sir. Maybe.
Someone controlling it? Can you?
No, I think,
Talbot has one.
Dr.
Kathy,
Talbot,
there's
you have
one
one
right
behind
behind
your, you have the magic button.
Thank you, Kathy.
No one.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Good. All right, so just kind of as a reminder about the program, the behavior intervention specialist, it most importantly is a general education position. This is a professional staff member who works with students in the gen ed setting, specifically elementary students, and works with students who are experiencing behaviors that are very disruptive, maybe physically aggressive towards their peers or staff members. And this is really much of a case management approach for the duration of the time they're assigned to the student. They work very intensively with the student and the staff. And again, they don't serve students in special education. Right now, we're staffed with 4 positions. The current people that we have in these roles are certified both as a general education and special education teacher. We actually had a member resign last year, and we replaced them with a new team member who is bilingual Spanish speaker, which has been a real nice addition to the program, working with some students who also are experiencing language. They're learning the English language, and that's been nice to have that extra layer of support. They are all experienced in behavior management in the classroom before they came into this role. They've been trained in restorative practices in the classroom, and they all stay up to date on their CPI training, which is nonviolent crisis intervention and de-escalation. Additionally, they're a pretty good set of folks in terms of being lifelong learners. 3 of them are in postgraduate programs to add additional degrees and certification in the area of behavior management. All right, so just kind of taking an overview look at the responsibilities that they have and the main duties that they perform. When they're assigned to a case, their first thing is to work with that teacher. This is really expected to be a partnership. They don't come in and replace the teacher or do things instead of the teacher. They want to really be that model and coach to increase the teacher's capacity to manage behavior in the classroom independently. And they come in and they work with some teachers who are experiencing challenges, and they come in and they work with rock star teachers, because both kinds of teachers can have kids that really present an obstacle to keeping the classroom safe and effective. And so they also help those teachers develop and locate resources to support not only the student in that case, but also their entire classroom. The behavior intervention specialists will work directly with students. They do a lot of observation. They gather a lot of data because the plans they help the teacher put in place need to be evidence-based, specific to that student and their needs. They do a lot of direct skill instruction. Students that get supported by behavior intervention specialists often have significant deficits in their ability to self-regulate, their ability to work appropriately in the classroom, to interact with peers and adults. And then they provide direct intervention with the teacher as they work towards those behavior goals. They serve as a member at the campus of the RTI team, helping put solid interventions in place. They can also provide training when requested. We've had a number of principals who have asked them to come in and maybe work with a grade level of teachers who have an unusually challenging group, or even do whole campus trainings. They've done quite a bit of that in the last few years. And then we also sometimes find that by the time they get called into the case, the student is almost in crisis. And so they will sometimes really help the campus manage that crisis. They'll spend a lot of hours there working directly with the teacher and with the students. And then at the district level, they have developed some professional learning options. They've worked with the professional learning staff to create courses in Canvas that any teachers can take to improve behavior management. And then they do a lot of partnership with special ed. Not quite half of the students that start out with a general ed behavior intervention specialist end up in a special ed referral. And so there's a transition period where these folks work very closely with the special ed staff to hand off data and to share kind of what they've been doing, the work that they've been doing. All right, Kathy. Thanks. So just a quick snapshot overview of last year. We had 111 cases, and that was only in the first 9 weeks. We didn't have any new cases in the fourth quarter since we went into district-wide closure. But I thought it might be interesting to see of the cases that we actually closed, those were the outcomes. So about half of them closed due to either adequate progress or maybe they were just called in on a lower level consult, so the campus didn't need any additional support after that initial consult. 38% of them ended up qualifying for special education. So there is a significant transition from this group to the special ed staff. And then 12% were withdrawn during the case. And this is, I think, an interesting observation about how some of the students who are experiencing the most significant behavior needs also have some transients, both, before they come to us and then they leave us before we can do all the work we would like to do. This is the case distribution from last year, so just kind of organized by the number of cases. The first column's 1, the second 2 to 3, and then 4 to 6, and 6 or more cases. So we actually took cases at a total of 34 different campuses last year.
Rebecca, could you give me 1 second? I'd like to announce that Mrs. Sells has arrived at 6:35. We'll just continue on for a moment, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so then,
What are the asterisks?
I'm sorry, thank you. Can you go back to that, Kathy? The asterisks, I don't have the breakout like this for this year's cases so far, but the asterisks indicate campuses that have had cases this year as well. Not necessarily in that same number breakout, but they have had cases this year. All right, Kathy. Thank you. So this year so far, we've had 52 cases. You can see that that's a lower number than we were at this point. The number of students who have selected the virtual pathway has definitely impacted the number of cases we've had. But something else that is interesting to note is we've also seen an increase in the intensity of the cases we do have. I was talking with my team just today, and they've already had 7 cases that had expedited special ed referrals. So those referrals were done in probably 2 to 3 weeks because the behaviors were so dangerous and so disruptive to learning. And I think, that's worth noting that those intense cases have resulted in a lot of time involved supporting the campuses. And then those 2 little boxes just give you a snapshot. You can see that, sometimes we have a case that lasts 2.5 weeks. We actually even have one that might just be 2 visits and we're done if we're just providing the campus with a consult. We actually have a case that's at 52 weeks and counting. Sometimes we'll see these where the kid definitely is struggling and the campus continues to need help. In most cases, we've recommended a special ed referral, the district has, but maybe the parent isn't willing to go forward with that. So the behavior intervention specialist will stay with that student in the campus as long as needed. And then below that in the green box, you can see this is kind of just a snapshot of the case hours they spend. So our most involved case to date, the intervention specialist spent 91 hours working just on that one case. And so it's just another snapshot for you. And I believe that's all I have. So, Kathy, Dr. Topper.
We are just so proud of the special education behavior interventionists that work so hard on a daily basis to make a difference in the lives of students with disabilities who present with the most severe behavior disorders. And I just wanted to take a minute to introduce our team. The behavior interventionists are led by Dr. Karen Scherer, and she's one of the special ed directors. She's in our audience back there. And just wanted to recognize her. She leads the team along with Brooke Wallace, who's our lead behavior interventionist. And Brooke, along with 5 other behavior interventionists, provide district-wide campus support for students with disabilities with a significant behavior challenge. 3 of our members on this team are board-certified behavior analysts as well as licensed behavior analysts. And so a board-certified behavior analyst, or we call them BCBAs, that's a graduate-level national certification that promotes the care, welfare, and safety of recipients of behavior analysis services. And it's established by professional ethical standards of practice. And we're so pleased that these 3 individuals bring this level of expertise to our team and also to our districts to benefit students. The team provides behavior analysis supports and interventions through highly specialized and individualized plans as required by the federal law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. They use evidence-based practices one of the things that we're most proud of our team for doing is providing that ongoing data analysis, implementation of those very specific student plans, and then also coaching teachers some of our most complex and challenging cases. And you'll also see them rotating throughout our TEAMS program, which is the most restrictive placement in our district for the students who were not able to be successful on the general ed campus, even in a self-contained setting. So you'll see that our behavior interventionists have an average caseload of approximately 83 students per month, and they have served a total of 188 special needs students year to date. And with that, I'm going to stop and introduce you.
Yeah, and let me just say, first off, I think if you talk to gen ed teachers, particularly elementary gen ed teachers, you'll hear many of them talk about the change in the student behavior in early grades. I mean, you'll walk a kindergarten class and see a kid throwing a desk, which, just these types of behaviors, and that's why we created the folks that work with Rebecca, and then, of course, Dr. Talbert's folks are just saints. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I mean, the work that they do with some of our most difficult students to help the teachers and those kids progress, is just amazing work. So, Ms. Ells, that's the end of the presentation. We're absolutely open to questions.
Okay, I see Ms. Lasanne's hand come up. Ms. Cox, did you have any questions first? Why don't we start with Ms. Cox and let's come around.
Yes, well, thank you. That's a great presentation. I'm very appreciative of the behavioral specialists. I'm glad some are in the audience today, so kudos and thank you to all that you do. It's very much appreciated. My question is, what does it look like, I guess, from each of you to exit the program? I mean, do you have like a rubric or a check the boxes? Because to me it would seem like there would need to be some type of follow-up ongoing to make sure how are we doing, we are still ongoing even for the next year. I mean, so what does that look like?
And we're very different, so if you want to speak first, Kathy.
Yeah, I could say can you hear me? Yes. When one of our behavior interventionists have a case, they have a step-by-step process of how they get involved and then how they approach the situation through, the data collection and working directly with the student, coming up with some very specific plans, modeling those plans to the teachers, and then coaching teachers. And then at the end, just monitoring the student progress. And their cases may stay on average open, I would say about 2 to 4 months, because they're dealing with some of the most severe behavior challenges, and they want to be sure that they're providing that level of support to our staff. And at the point where, we can see that the data is showing that the behavior is improving and that there's not a need for that level of support, they will close the case but still put it on monitor and touch base periodically with the campus.
And I'll speak to ours, which is a little different. So there's typically 2 ways that ours close. One is that the student qualifies for special education. And because this position only serves general ed students, then they hand that off to the special ed staff who will work with the student. So that's one way. The second way is if the student demonstrates adequate progress. And so that starts with the behavior intervention specialist noticing that there's improvement. They work with the teacher continuously. They start to meet the goals that have been set for them. So collaboratively, the behavior intervention specialist will talk with the campus staff. If they feel like the kid has made adequate progress, they'll propose that they close the case. That is always done collaboratively. If a campus wants us to stay involved because they feel like they still need the support, we will. And then they let the campus know that if at any time the need reopens for the student, they just need to contact them and they will resume the case. And that does happen sometimes as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cox. Ms. Lasanne?
So I just want to share a short little personal story here because I think it will hopefully help everyone understand the work that these people do and how amazing they are. And I'm going to try not to get emotional about it, but so my son was 4 years old when he was diagnosed with autism. which a lot of you know that. That's no big secret. And the doctor at the time said, you need to get your son in therapy with a BCBA therapist. And I was like, what is that? Where do I find it? At the time, there was really only a few places where you could do that, really anywhere. And so we get into the school. He was already in PPCD, so we got into a class, and lo and behold, I met Karen Shear before she was Dr. Shear. And I tell people that between her and our PPCD teacher, her name is Jody Miller, she is still at Flower Mound Elementary. They literally saved our lives because we were just at our wits' end. He was 4 years old. Now, if you know this child, you wouldn't believe that he used to be, he's the friendliest kid you'll ever meet. Any of the board members here can tell you that. But this certification, this BCBA certification, is no joke. And really, especially at the time 10 years ago, or more than that, 12 years ago, people were still grasping at what to do with kids with autism. What do we do? How do we treat them? Well, really the only way to make improvement with a child with autism, you're never going to cure them, but you can make significant improvements with ABA therapy. And the fact that we have these people on staff here in LASD is amazing. And I'm sure I am one of many parents who feel this way, that it literally just saved our lives, changed our lives, and I am so grateful. And Karen back there, thank you. And now she's Dr. Shear, and I'm so proud of her. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lasan. Mr. Miller, do you have anything?
Thank you for telling that story. I think that just a few comments. Special ed is a broad category, and we all get involved, Dr. Talbert, with you, and Mrs. Clark, and Mr. Kosh, in certain cases. And this is I think there's it would be great not to have this for many, just for obvious reasons. It's interesting the distribution would not be what some who don't have experience would say. They would say that it would be slighted towards certain campuses. And it really, when you look at this distribution, I think it's interesting where the numbers fall out. The other thing is, in looking at the quadrants you had here, I think student, district, etc., the one thing is I just want to add is parent or guardian involvement. A lot of times we will get someone will reach out and say the district didn't identify the student fast enough or in time. We find out that we've had a student for a year, they're an English language learner, they may have dyslexia and some other learning disabilities, maybe on the far end of the spectrum or on another end, and there are a lot of factors that go into this, and this could be just the beginning of identifying them or putting them on a path to some other identification that will help. So thank you for this and the resource and the folks that are doing this work, and just want to make sure that people understand this is a complex set of things, and this could just be the beginning of a story like that where it seems to be a negative. There's a behavioral interventionist got involved. It's actually a positive in helping the student to have a better learning experience. So thank you.
Ms. Hassett?
I have a couple questions. Ask them all?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Ask them all.
Ask them all.
The caseload, the children who withdrew from LISD, do they ever come back? Is this a normal phenomenon that they just leave the district and don't come back, or do we have them?
They do sometimes come back. We have had some cases where we started working with a student, they withdrew, and then a few months later they ended up back, and the campus would let us know. Sometimes when they come back, we'll give them a little bit of time to settle in, and then the campus can let us know if they need the services again. So that does happen more often than not, though. They don't come back in the same school year.
Okay. The case distribution, what is the asterisk on that chart?
The asterisk is, so that chart showed last year, that showed the complete caseload for last year. So I went in and asterisked the ones that have had cases this year as well. Not necessarily in that same distribution, but just to give you a snapshot of where we were this year.
And then a couple of questions. What happens to the students who might still be needing services if they're in elementary? What happens when they're transitioning to middle school?
The interesting thing from my perspective with our program is the vast majority of our students are kindergarten and first grade. We had a lot of preschool last year. We haven't had as many preschool this year, I think related to our preschool numbers in general. However, I bet I'd have to look at my numbers to see, but the number of fifth graders we have is very, very small. So it's mostly the younger grades, and we haven't had any transition out in fifth grade still needing support yet.
Okay.
They either had been qualified for special education and were supported that way, or they'd made adequate progress.
Okay. Can we share the de-escalation strategies with other parents around the district? I could use some de-escalation strategies. It's just, we often share different things with parents, and I think it'd be a great way to have some of those nuggets and share it with parents.
One of the things that the behavior intervention specialist team is working on is some parent education pieces. They're actually working on a how to be ready for kindergarten piece, and so I can certainly add that to their list of topics to think about. They're looking at the Ask an Expert type video series, so I'll add that to their list of topics.
If they have the de-escalation strategy specific to like teenagers, might be even more.
There is no hope.
They outgrow it?
One more question. For the intense caseload that has, we had an increase in intense caseload. Were those the same children with stronger issues? Was it new children with new issues?
Specifically, that's a reference to new cases. So one of the things the team has observed is that even though the caseload is smaller with the number of kids that are virtual, some of the cases they've seen, the behaviors have been so intense that we've actually had to, work with the campus. The campus has contacted special ed and asked for an expedited referral. Special ed staff gets involved quickly. They're the kind of behaviors where there's multiple times a day that the room might have to be cleared. There's restraints that are having to take place. There's people that are getting hurt. So they're children whose the physical aggression that they're demonstrating is dangerous, and the frequency with which it's happening is sometimes almost constant. And so the behavior intervention specialists on the gen ed side, because these students haven't been identified as special ed yet, so they're not only supporting the student and the teacher, but also helping them triage, helping them have a crisis plan in place day to day, and working with them until, if we've referred to special ed and the parent consents, that the evaluation can take place, and then special ed staff can step into that to provide that specialized support.
Would this be any cause to the increased stress that everybody's feeling with the COVID year, or is this something external?
We sit every other week. My team and I sit and we look at cases and we kind of debrief through the cases that they're working on. And one of the things that comes up over and over again is the identification of trauma. So trauma is a huge factor, and that can be something that you can pinpoint, an event in the child's life, or it can be just the circumstances in which the family is living. There's a broad thing, but we do actually, I think we've talked about this, Monia Crow and I, in the past, that my team partners quite a bit with her student assistance counselors, so sometimes you have both people serving that same student because the emotional needs are so strong.
Thank you for all your work.
Okay. Ms. Crosney?
My question is a little bit about recidivism, because I don't know the word to use it for those cases that they have adequate progress, which is over 50%, right? So if they have adequate progress, do we ever track that? Do you understand my question?
And I'd have to look at all of our cases since we started to get you an exact number, but I can tell you it's extremely low. They tend to stay with the student until there's really some strong supports in place. And sometimes these kids, they're either new to us or they're coming off of some sort of traumatic event. And with the right amount of support and intervention and the plan in place and getting that teacher feeling really good about how to work with the kid, a lot of times that can be all they need to kind of get them over that hump. And if it's a much more serious case than that, then typically they end up going down the evaluation process, and then they end up being supported through the special ed department. So we, in my group, don't see a lot of that.
And I was, last year when you spoke, you spoke that it was mainly pre-K students and kindergarten, and this year it's interesting that it's kindergarten and first grade, and I greatly appreciate that an expert, because I think some of this could be alleviated before they arrive on our campus, teaching children how to be students in a classroom that have never been students before, teaching them how to do that.
Hard to come to school never having learned how to accept no. So, that can create a lot of behavior in and of itself.
Yes, having to sit in a box, having to sit still was always more of a problem for me. On Dr. Talbert, on the behavior intervention, the last slide, when you talked about 83 students a month, is that about average? I know that's just for 2021. Is that about average? Because this year, I'm kind of just wondering, or if is it higher?
I would say it's pretty similar to last year. I mean,
Okay.
they have pretty high caseloads, and so, I mean, between Brooke and the 5 behavior interventionists that, they're serving, those 83 students per month, it's an average of about 13 cases, and so they really have to spend time prioritizing, where they are and things like that, but they do a really good job of managing it. And so it's just in situations where, we're in a crisis situation, and then maybe one student needs, help for several days, where it might be harder to kind of manage it. They do an outstanding job.
They do an amazing job. No, I was just curious if COVID had affected these numbers more than anything.
I would say probably not. I mean, I think that this is pretty typical.
Okay. Really appreciate the work that they do and how they help all of our students.
Yes. I think most of my questions have been answered. I do want to reiterate that I think that that parent piece is critical in here. And what do we do? How do we assist the parents outside of the classroom once their child is part of this? Do we bring the parents in at all? And did I miss that? I mean, because I apologize for being late, but I would imagine that if a child's having issues in the classroom, he's probably also having issues at home. And so
I could speak to that. One of the things that the ARD committees do address is the need for parent training. And so if there is a concern of the parent, and we're using these great evidence-based behavior procedures that are working and successful at school, but it's not generalizing into the home setting, the ARD can talk about that, and we could send our in-home trainers and who also do parent training into the home, to help with that generalization and to, empower the parents to, be consistent, across settings with, these strategies work, let's all use them. And so it's pretty powerful.
that would be powerful, because I think for a child, having all the parents in their life, or all the adults in their life on the same page as far as my behavior, is a strong message to a child, and actually something that they probably welcome. Some of these children like to know where they stand, and that they do have parameters that they need to fall within as far as their behavior. So I appreciate that. I do like to ask the expert, and I think that that is something for that de-escalation, if we could do that, that it would benefit us all, because I think that we've all been thrown, even as parents, into situations that husbands who usually travel are now home, and those adults want to eat, and they want they have all sorts of things that we're not. It's not the norm for a lot of people to have everybody in this COVID situation. So I would appreciate that. Are the BCBAs, are those hard positions to fill, or how many? You say that's a graduate level, but do we have trouble filling those positions, or are those pretty long-term people?
Yeah, we've been successful with building our own, and so Dr. Shearers, she's able to supervise, the people on our team who are going to college to get that, level of certification, and then also, they receive an additional stipend because we're trying real hard to be competitive with surrounding districts who are working hard to attract, even some of our own. So we're trying to be very competitive, and so I appreciate the district support on that.
Okay, and that's kind of where I was going was, are we using that build our own in that for the BCBA? And so if that's a critical point. So well, thank you all very much. It's always good to hear where this program is going, and especially from where it came from. So thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you all.
Okay. And I did want to announce that we are back online. And so appreciate technology for working on that and getting us back up. And I'm going to look at Ms. Bay real quick, and we are going to continue on through our discussion points before we return back to the agenda. Is that correct? Okay.
Ms. Sells, I would recommend that we go back.
Go back?
Because I think that's, if you go through the rest of the agenda, you're making people,
Yes.
and that's not why they're watching.
Right, right.
So I would
We will do
suggest
that.
that we go back to
People are
to
terribly
the calendar
interested.
discussion.
Okay. So then we will go back, and we will go back to item G2 on the agenda, and that is our review of the 2021 academic calendar.
Do
So,
we need a motion?
pardon?
Do we need a motion?
And yes, Ms. Bay, do we need a motion?
Yes, just a motion to revert back to the original agenda.
Okay, so if I could have someone make that motion. Ms. Cox?
Gonna make the motion. Make the motion that we go back to
G2.
G2.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, make that part of the record. And so Dr. Rapp? Or
Well, it's
Dr.
actually
Rogers?
Dr. Rogers.
Yes.
And I'm going to go back through real quick the first few slides just to sort of recapture for those that weren't able to. So just a reminder, we normally bank 2 to 3 days ever since 2015 when we started 75,600 minutes. This year we started with 8.5 because we extended the school day. We used one of those for Election Day, one for President's Day, and we have one planned for March 8th, which is next Monday. And that leaves 5.5 bank days, and we have 2 bad weather days. So the decisions that we want to ask the board to make tonight for sure about the missed school days waiver, which is part of the resolution that Ms. Bay has created for us to discuss and ask for action later in the agenda. The end of the third 9 weeks. If we can get those 2 things and you don't feel comfortable finalizing the end of the school year, we can finalize that next Monday. We're fine, but we've got to decide on the end of the third 9 weeks. So bad weather days, as we discussed, TA did announce they will allow us to use what's known as missed school days waiver for all 4 days from February 16th through the 19th. And so we're not required to use our bad weather days, which are April 26th and May 27th on our current calendar. And so our recommendation is to maintain the 26th as the bad weather day, and that still leaves us 5.39 bank days remaining. And then, just to make sure that's sort of a recap. Are there any questions, Ms. Ells? I know you missed that part, so if you want to ask any questions about that before I proceed.
TA waiver?
Yeah.
The TA.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next discussion item is the end of the third 9 weeks, and as I said earlier, we talked about for this school year being flexible and nimble, and well, I've been about as flexible and nimble as possible, and I can hardly touch my toes. So, but the bad weather days, if we leave it as is with the end of the third 9 weeks, this Friday, March 5th, then we'll have 36 days in the third 9 weeks. That's not problematic for a lot of classes, but it's very problematic for high schools, particularly 9-week courses in high schools. And so we recommend absolutely changing the end of the third 9 weeks from March 5th to March 12th. If you agree to that, that does move the early release day from March 5th to March 12th also. And but we would keep March 8th as a student holiday and a staff work day. We can still do the work required for transitioning to the fourth 9 weeks. You know, we asked for your consideration of that originally in December because there's so much work, people shifting from different pathways, us having to move teachers from virtual to in-person or possibly vice versa, that we needed that day just to allow people to get ready. And so we can still accomplish what we needed to on March 8th by leaving it. We know parents and families, made plans, so it really doesn't make sense to shift the March 8th day. So our recommendation is to change the end of the third 9 weeks from March 5th to March 12th to better balance our grading periods, to keep March 8th as a student holiday and staff. So you can see where that shift happens. That makes the third 9 weeks 40 days instead of 36, and the fourth 9 weeks 45. And then we'll have the further discussion. But questions about the end of the third 9 weeks, Ms. Sells?
And I will just let anybody, the March the 12th would then become early release?
Yes, ma'am. There's been a couple of really legitimate sort of outliers. For instance, I know one trustee mentioned there was a parent that had planned to shift their child to virtual, and they were going to be gone all next week, with March 8th. That's a great question. We will handle the outliers. I know there was a question earlier from another trustee about, hey, a parent had planned to be gone on March 5th, the early release day, that afternoon, to travel and have that 3-day weekend. We can handle those kind of things. Campuses are going to be flexible with families and parents, and so I don't think that really causes me or a campus a lot of alarm that we can't work through those outliers.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Miller?
Do you?
Go ahead.
Okay. I guess we'll get to the resolution in a bit and decide if this should fit in there or stand out, because I hate to vote against the resolution and because of disagreement with this component, right? So
yeah, this is separate from the resolution, Mr. Miller.
Oh, this isn't in the resolution?
No.
Okay. So the waiver is in the resolution now.
The waiver is part of the resolution, and you can absolutely not agree to the waiver and decide that separate at next week's board meeting and not put it as part of the resolution. So I don't want to discuss too much more of the resolution until it's...
Well, I'm just thinking here, discussion item, this is not an action. If this is discussion item 2.A, it's a discussion item, there's no action for us.
There's an action on this.
There's an action item at the top of the next page.
Okay, I don't know why we separate those, but okay. So here's...
Because it's two different actions. The resolution is separate from the current
H.1
calendar.
and H.2.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple things. Seems to me that on Monday the 1st, telling parents that they need childcare for Friday afternoon seems pretty abrupt. And I know that we've got to work out kind of teacher schedules, that type of thing, but that's for some parents that's going to be an abrupt type thing. Teachers may like it.
So let me ask this clarification. Why, if your kid gets to stay longer in school, does it put more of a burden on a parent needing
I'm sorry,
child?
you're right.
Okay.
You're extending the day versus, right. So let's scratch that. This is primarily for high school teachers, correct? I mean, is it, like, where did we get the input? Did teachers principals start calling on Friday while, the storms are going on, hey, they're worried about, getting things done, or because it's my understanding that a lot of teachers started to make proper adjustments and feel comfortable that they can accomplish what they need to within the current schedule.
There is no doubt, Mr. Miller, that the biggest crux of who faces hardships when you have 36 days instead of 40-something is a high school course. Can you work that out with the same elementary fourth grader that you had the third 9 weeks, and you're going to have them the fourth 9 weeks and adjust a whole lot easier? Absolutely. So the major driving factor of this, but when Dr. Rapp, myself, these ladies talk, if you lose a week of instruction due to bad weather, then you should automatically be planning on, okay, where are you going to put the instruction that you missed the week before? You're going to be making adjustments anyway. So the few teachers, and I can count them on one hand, that I've heard from or seen emails from, I think it's an outlier. I don't think, I know they talk to, and the chiefs talk to principals, got principal input, and what I've been told is, that all principals were in favor of the change. Is that?
Well, I think at elementary, it's definitely more of a mixed impact. There's some that we're asking about it, but there's mixed impact at elementary. Some think it'd be okay just to keep going. Some think it'd be good to extend the deadline. The conversation started because of concern at the high school with coming right back and facing semester exams. And I think, we have several principals in the audience who could share some thoughts, both middle and some elementary and high school, on perspectives. Dr. Rogers, I know if we need to, but, you have a UIL eligibility loss at the 9 weeks that has to be taken into consideration. You've got while yes, teachers that had electricity and had water might have been able to make adjustments, they have to also remember that there are staff out there that did not. And most importantly, there are kids out there that didn't. And 1 week more for kids to complete their work or to cover the material longer or anything of that nature can only benefit the kid. And the conversation about redoing a semester exam is pretty hefty work in different courses. Your 9-week courses would be a lot more under the gun, of course, and AP Psych is going to essentially have lost a week at that point. So all of those different factors, of course, we're back in a situation where there's not one answer that makes everybody happy, and I wish we could get ourselves out of that boat. But I know that there are really good kid-driven reasons that our principals have shared with us who we're hearing from teachers about concerns.
And there's no doubt, Mr. Miller, it isn't optimal. No one planned to have 4 bad weather days in a row in late February, and so we wish the timing was better, but it is what it is.
Could you explain the UIL eligibility issue?
Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
A student, gains or loses eligibility at the end of every 3 weeks. Of course, a grading period, a 9-week is, and if you have not had eligibility and you then are passing at the end of the 9 weeks, then the next Friday you actually regain eligibility, or vice versa. And for us, because we're on 9-week grading periods, which is a positive for students retaining eligibility, you would lose eligibility a week later if you failed the 9 weeks grade. So
You would lose. Does this give some advantage to the student to try and make up what they need to so they can maintain eligibility, I guess, in simple terms?
Yes, absolutely it does.
So that right there, to me, is compelling. So is the instruction. But this is where I think if we were to do an autopsy on this at some point, hey, Rogers is going to recommend that you guys change spring break. Well, that's not true. Rogers is going to recommend this. But the element of eligibility for a student, having had one that, struggled one 9 weeks, like, is he going to be eligible? This is a big deal, especially at some of the campuses where we would be concerned about instruction. It changes my perspective. And so I share that only to say that's the type of thing, because I'm sure it's not all principals said that they're a go on this, but most of them. This would change my perspective if I'm a principal that's looking at all the students saying, hey, a week more for Tracy might allow him to stay in a sport that's actually the thing that keeps him in school. I think that's compelling. So for everybody that thought I was going to come in and vote no, there's the reason I would vote yes.
And I think, I'm looking at Mr. Skelton, who had shared some thoughts earlier, because at the high school principal meeting, definitely the thought was amongst the high school principals, this is important to bring forward, or we wouldn't be here bringing it forward this evening. But senior GPA and class rank is also figured for seniors at the end of the third 9 weeks. And that's a big deal for a senior. So a little bit extra time going into that third 9 weeks grade can't do anything but help them as well. And I see him shaking his head, so I hope I represented that okay.
He's shaking his head. Ms. Hassett, did you have?
Several questions. Okay, for the UIL eligibility, if we extend it a week, then they also have to wait a week. If they're passing now when they weren't, they then have to wait a week.
That's correct.
And if they need that little extra time, then if we extend it, that gives it to it. So it could hurt some and help some, depending upon where the student is.
It could hurt some. I think in general it helps more than it hurts, particularly at the end of a 9 week versus a third or sixth 9 week grading period. And so, because you can regain eligibility every 3 weeks, but it's the grading period that makes that. If I pass, now I'm eligible for 9 more weeks. And
right. So if we keep it the way it is and they're passing, they get it a week earlier.
Yeah, but
I'd like to think they'd be passing in another week.
Well, and
but then they would get it a week later. They couldn't play for an extra week.
I think in LISD, while eligibility is important.
That's not that was a secondary question.
Okay.
Okay, my other question.
I'll take your primary question.
Okay, I have several. Shocking. For virtual learning and Edgenuity, their schedule ends with our current schedule. So those virtual teachers will then have to figure out how to extend it for a week?
So there will be work to be done to support the virtual teachers at elementary and secondary. Ms. Gall and Ms. Seeley are aware of that concern, and there would need to be some adjustments made.
And how many students do we still have? What's the percentage of students that we have in virtual?
Probably 10 to 15%. Some places higher, some, but we certainly have 15, percent plus. So,
of our high school in particular? Or actually, no, because middle school wouldn't be as impacted. High school would be more impacted with the change.
Any of the virtuals with the pacing and Edgenuity, elementary, middle, or high, are impacted with needing adjustments. And so Ms. Gall and Ms. Seeley have worked with their teams, and that is something that, they'll have to continue to work on supporting the teachers. I know Ms. Lewis was sharing, I don't know, Ms. Lewis, which principal you heard it from, I think specifically regarding virtual, this could also provide an opportunity for students to be able to still complete some of their virtual work that they may be behind on, or you could provide some enrichment if they're ahead. So I can't see Ms. Lewis. She might be behind the pole.
And I think I would remind the board that our virtual students weren't doing instruction on those 4 days either. So,
Right.
That's why I'm a little confused, because I don't understand how our virtual are any different from our in-person.
Because the scheduling with an Edgenuity is different than ours. And so it's impacting all of our virtual students if we change.
It just means that we have to change the sequence of the course and extend it. So you're right. It does. We are aware that there's a lot of work to do, but it's work that we still believe is important. or we wouldn't be here.
And what about the dual credit classes, the 9-week dual credit classes that are supposed to start already? Because we have a couple of my friends have 9-week courses at the high school level that are supposed to start. How does that affect?
Dual credit?
Dual credit. I forgot the course name. I forgot. I think it's English, I think.
So, we'll have to work with our community college provider on how to make adjustments if this is to go through tonight, obviously. That'll be something that we'll need to work with them on what does that mean for our students who would be starting a dual credit class.
Because those students, don't they go in the morning to the campus for dual credit, and then they would be missing out on...
Depends on which school they're at and what the master schedule is there, because once again, every school is not impacted exactly the same when it comes to dual credit.
Okay.
So, some of our campuses have adjuncts teaching inside of them. Some of them are going to the campus. So everybody's impacted differently. There's no exact universal identical impact.
And the only thing I would say to that is that sometimes with dual credit, the course ends before our semester ends. I had a lovely teenager at home an extra whole week before LISD got out because they were in dual credit. And the Collin College got out.
Right. But if NCTC is supposed to start next week, then they could be needing to go to 2 different classes at the exact same time, which is hard.
I agree.
Then, do we know how many students have decided to switch at the elementary and secondary level between in-person to virtual?
Yes, the elementary number is around the 200-ish mark, and we've looked at those changes already that need to happen.
And that's 200 from virtual
from
to
virtual
in-person.
to in-person.
I was going to say, which way?
Yeah. Okay.
Which way are we going?
Virtual to in-person.
So there's, in all categories, and I don't have the numbers, and, we can pull it up, but in all categories, more parents are still moving to in-person, just in a lot smaller quantities than what we've experienced.
And actually, I think the secondary change at high school specifically was a smidge to virtual versus in-person at the district level.
From in-person to virtual?
From in-person to virtual.
At the high school level, more than normal?
It was a smidge. It was very small numbers. The largest amount of change was at the elementary level of kids coming from virtual to in-person.
Okay. So if they're coming from virtual, if they're virtual now, then if they come back in person, then it wouldn't affect them as much at the elementary level, because I've heard from elementary also that the students who do choose to go from in-person to virtual at the elementary will then have to redo their week on not having a child picked up, and they have to those parents will have to redo their week too then. So we don't have as many.
You don't have as many going from in-person to virtual. The biggest shift of numbers at elementary was virtual to in-person.
Okay. And then you already mentioned how are we going to make up the learning? So my question is, how are we going to make up the learning of SNOVID?
Well, and that's a discussion that we'll have regarding the end of the year too, because it's absolutely a valid question. I guess my point is, and I'll continue to make this point, and certainly the board can decide otherwise, but if we really believe that we're going to make up for all learning in 4 days or the 3 days at the end of the school, I think we're kidding ourselves. I think you have to have staff that aren't burnt out. You have to have parents that are ready. I think we saw what parents at 2 of our neediest schools, Rockbrook and Lewisville Elementary School, with the extended school day. We did massive amounts of work trying to build some work to try to get folks to extend their year by 30 days, and they were 2/3 opposed to it. I think folks in a pandemic with Snowmageddon added onto it are ready to have this thing over. And I think that it gives us some time to put in place the summer learning that we need to put in place. It gives our staff extra time to catch their breath. I mean, I'm going to read some input from the principals, and you were provided. I mean, our staff are, they're beat. And so, you know, I don't think that you're going to make that up, Ms. Hassett, whether it's 4 days or 7 days. And
Are we trying to tweak readiness versus supporting standards on the TEKS or any of that nonsense, trying to make sure that we're hitting high-level TEKS?
So, you know, first of all, what we did for this year was we have to even think back to at-home learning and the last 4th 9 weeks. And so they worked to, for instance, at elementary, put in refresher things throughout the school year with where those TEKS were located that kids are hitting this year that they did not get completely like they would have in the at-home learning period. And, you know, I'm really proud of the learning and teaching team for that elementary. That's a huge amount of work just to even address that when you think of all those grade levels. At secondary, when you think about at-home learning, they already prioritized, and I'm using this as an example, right? What they provided and supported the teachers with and the campuses were, out of the time that we have, here's the things that you need to focus on with priority, right? And so if when we're talking about next school year, if there are things that they feel like we did not get to completely get around to, they are able to then support the campuses on what are the things that we need to focus, on. But it's one of the things I would say that we do best in education, because that's the business we're in, is learning adjustments from year to year, from course to course. You know, and really taking kids where they are and growing them to where they need to be, because every year has something different that happens in it. And adjustments is just part of what we do every year.
Okay, Ms. Prosnick or Ms. Cox or Ms. Lassonde, do y'all have any questions?
I see, I mean, a lot of the principals have chimed in on this, and I'm grateful for that, but, you know, Ms. Hassett kind of brought up some good points about what does our staff feel about this? Because, you know, Dr. Rogers, you just said it earlier, how taxing this has been for teachers, and, you know, what does this mean for our virtual teachers? I mean, these are the people that are going to be taxed, you know, on this. So what is their perspective of these changes? How do they feel?
Yeah, and I think, great question, Ms. Cox, and I don't want to get too much ahead of on the end of the year, but it is connected, absolutely, on the instruction. But, you know, our principals here and our principals on my principal advisory, I think they're really alluding to, you know, their staff. And so whenever you know, Miss Garrett from Valley Ridge talks about they arrive at school early to greet students at their doors at 7:15, when in the past students wouldn't come till 7:35, so there's 20 extra minutes every day for an elementary. They add in taking care of minor ailments in class while waiting their student's nurse appointment. They spend their conference time posting work to Canvas for students doing remote learning. They attend ARDS 504s and RTIs. They administer CBAs, cover for each other's. You have to remember, we were happy this last week that our coverage rate for substitutes was like 75%, the highest rate we've had. Well, guess who's being pulled to cover those classes when there's not a sub? Teachers. I mean, so when you add all that together, it's like they just want to get this thing. They've worked extremely hard, and I think I need to be real clear. They haven't given a second-rate effort, and I know y'all know this as a board. I mean, these people have stepped up every single day, no matter what's been thrown at. I mean, you think there's 1,000 of our teachers that 2 weeks before school started were told you're going to be a virtual teacher. Had to relearn all that. Then some of them, after the first 9 weeks, were changed from virtual back to in-person. Some of them then were changed back from I mean, that's the kind of year that our staff has not only tolerate but excelled at. And so please know there would never be another time in my career that I would ever think about making this request. I just don't know that. I mean, I'm hopefully, thank God we will never face anything like this. And I think the other thing that weighs on you too is what the start of next year is going to look like. If we knew that, hey, it was going to be over, but we don't. That unknown continues to grate on our staff, and so that's why I just truly believe that we need to seriously consider it. And I know you are, as trustees, and I appreciate the opportunity to have the discussion.
I'll weigh in. So it's interesting. I heard from a lot of people today that I haven't normally heard from, and I think what it kind of gets at is I think that everyone's thrown a bit that we're having to make these kind of last minute, and I talked to Dr. Rogers about this, these last minute changes, but honestly it can't really be helped because again it's kind of a hopefully once in a lifetime situation. When you sit and think, I think that's what's throwing people the most is that we're talking about on Friday we're talking about making it from half a day to a full day, and then changing March 12th to a half a day. So I think some of those things is what is throwing people. But if you sit and think, okay, just take a deep breath and relax and think, okay, kids are going to have an extra week to prepare for their midterm exams, and the teachers will have a little more time to teach to the exams. That's I think that's probably preferable. This weekend, if you were planning to take a long weekend trip somewhere, go. I mean, just go. You still have Monday off. You're just missing half a Friday. I mean, that's kind of my thoughts. It's nothing that anyone in this district, I think, wanted to do, but we're just trying to take a big look at what needs to happen and what's best for the entire 50,000 students, not just, some small groups. But anyway, that's my 2 cents about the 9-week changes.
Yeah, Ms. Lasan, I just, if we're asking ourselves to be flexible and nimble, I just want to be clear that we will be flexible and nimble with these, these types of specific needs that parents did plan to be gone Friday afternoon. I mean, there's never been a time in my 35 years in LISD that a parent came to a school and wanted to take their kid that we've told them no. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So,
Are there any other comments? How flexible are our extended school day with making these changes?
Our ESD program?
Yeah, our ESD. Yes.
So, Mr. Kosh at Dr. Rogers' request as well had asked to be sure that we are talking about needing ESD not only for this, but even the end of the school year as well. And I mean, they respond really quickly. We say we might need something else for the summer, and today they're like, just tell us what it is and we'll put it together. And Mr. Kosh is shaking his head. They're just a very fast team, and it actually allows the team to be paid, for those days, and that's a good thing as well. So
okay. And then you answered pretty much the collegiate. That just really is going to be course versus campus, and what NCTC and Colin are doing. Just want to make sure that those students have the ability to succeed no matter what is thrown at them for those days.
We will have to work through that, no doubt. And I would just say again that as I'm looking at the faces of the principals, are there people that already have changes made and ready to go? Are there people that it would create more work for to make these changes? There's people in both boats. So when you think about who does this change benefit, it's the kid who has a lot riding on the grading period, and it's giving them the maximum amount of opportunity to get that grade right before it goes in the grade book on the third 9 weeks. And that's going to require some flexibility on everybody's part to make that decision. And it requires our elementaries to work a little bit differently than our high schools, but it gives every kid a chance to have the best grade going into the third 9 weeks grade book.
That was just a lead into my other question was, what scenario would we have a highest rate of success for most students? And I think you just answered that. So, okay, anything else from anybody? All right, okay. We'll go back to my...
So Ms. Sells, what I'd like to ask at this time, just to at least know, is where we're at with the end of the third 9 weeks. I mean,
We're going to vote on it.
I know. I just want to make sure we're good with that, or do we want to proceed and have further discussion about end of year 2? Or where's the board's comfort level with stopping there or going ahead and having further discussion about the end of the year?
I don't
Because
wanna
we
make
can
any
live
changes.
with either.
I want to make the changes tonight, and then that's it for the rest of
Okay.
the year.
Well, but I think the question is, right now, we kind of have this bifurcation between 9 weeks and end of year, which is hard for a lot of us to separate. I think even Dr. Rogers and you talking about it, I think you're looking at this holistically. We read these comments, which, by the way, these are great comments from principals. Thank you for this, those who did it. And it gives us a lot to think about for next year, by the way, some of these things. But so if the question is, how should we do this, right? If because this really is a holistic, it could be considered a holistic type decision.
And Mr. Miller, and I apologize, I just didn't want the board to feel like they had to be rushed to make a decision about the end of the school year, but absolutely, I need you to be rushed about making a decision about the end of the third 9 weeks. I'm fine to proceed, and I would agree. I think it makes sense to get it all done, but I didn't want you to feel like we had to have an answer, because a week from now we're back together.
Right. I'm with Ms. Hassett. I
I'm
want
with
to make a
Ms. Cox
decision.
and Ms. Hassett. Let's
Okay.
make a decision tonight.
Draw a line
Get it
and
over
see
right.
it be done.
But can we split the motion later into 2 separate motions?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to move forward. Okay, so considerations for the end of the school year. So, let me just read a few more comments, and I know you got these, but I'm reading these for some other folks that, this is still Miss Garrett. Our teachers have given all of themselves to school and their students and have nothing left to give themselves. They are told to practice self-care, but aren't given time to do it, not even on the weekends. Mr. Holt wrote, I know the staff and students at Durham have worked hard over the course of the year. We have adapted to a new schedule, new protocols, and new learning pathways. It's important to consider the emotional and physical demands placed on our staff, students, and families. Ms. Knight at McCamey, this has been a very challenging year for our teachers, the most challenging. They are completely spent. Ms. Kroll at Killian, the teachers of LISD have stepped up and been true heroes. Most middle school teachers are working our buildings from 7:45 to 5:30 with the extended hours, not to mention the hours in the evening to manage the quarantined students' academic needs. The teachers haven't complained because they love their students and serving their communities. Our teachers have covered classes and duties daily. Ms. Mattingly at McCullough, I have huge concerns about the emotional well-being of our staff, students, families, and communities. The staff is working tirelessly to meet needs, bridge gaps, heal hearts, and work through trauma. Mr. Russell at Flower Mountain High School, who are we glad that he's back and working his way through recovery from COVID. The positivity and the can-do attitude has prevailed at every opportunity there. With uncertainty with what the future holds for next school year, I feel it's important to end this one on a positive note. Ms. Spitzer at BBON, our amazing teachers, staff, leadership, and LISD have found a way to open schools safely since the beginning of the school year and provide 2 learning pathways for students to choose from. Don't forget, many elementary teachers will have to do something in addition at the start of next year with House Bill 3 required reading academies. Ms. Tyler from LHS Kilo, students are working hard despite having to work to help their parents with household responsibilities. Teachers are working hard despite having to work longer hours and take care of work and family obligations. Parents are working hard to support their families financially and educationally. Going to school for 3 extra days will not close unforeseen instructional gaps in students. Ms. Webb at Creek Valley, both my virtual and in-person staff have completely reinvented how they're communicating, providing instruction, support, and interventions to our students and their families. Our staff needs a break and needs time to prepare for these summer interventions and whatever next year might bring. And then Ms. Wernicke, which just did probably the most touching to me, but all of them were great. I continue to be amazed by what has been accomplished this school year. Longer days, cleaning throughout the day, tireless efforts to support students in classrooms and online, contact tracing, quarantine measures, trying to maintain student activities, crisis intervention, and the hardships brought on by the losses of loved ones for so many. It's been an extraordinary hard year for all of our students, families, and staff, and the recent bad weather crisis has left some still without utilities, major house repairs, living with friends or family. I worry about the long haul, and I don't believe any great academic gains will happen in the space of an extra 3 days of school. There's a tremendous amount of planning, remediation, support, and professional learning that still need to happen in the summer. I think starting summer a few days early gives our teachers a jump start on the much-needed rest before important work begins. I did also talk twice in the last 2 weeks to my parent advisory, which is made up of 36 parents from all across the district, all different levels. 2 weeks ago when I asked them, that was before the storm, I asked for their input about ending the school year early, and they were unanimously, and actually surprisingly so, unanimously in favor of ending the school year. And these are parents, some come from title schools. And then last Thursday, and Ms. Sells just happened to be there, so she was able to listen. I just asked them the question, now in light of the 4 bad weather days, what are your thoughts? And still unanimously they said, and one of them, and I've used her quote several times, and Dr. Rogers, we just need to wrap a bow on this year. And you know what? I started the year out with the thought, and we talked about this back in July and again in August. If we can get through the school year and not have to close down the district, I was going to be so proud and so amazed. I'm amazed at how we've been able to pivot by only having to close 4 schools for short periods of time and go remote, how we've been able to have all the extracurricular events that it has been an amazing task by our staff to get to this point. And I truly believe that we need to seriously consider ending the school year early. As you notice, of course, graduation's taken care of. It won't interfere with graduation. We can have our last instructional day by law on or after May 15th. This is a pretty good comparison of the total minutes that we've been in. So if you look back, and of course, 14-15 was not required, and so of course that's before 75,600 minutes start. But you can see the 5 years leading up to this year, and so I guess my point looking at this chart is add COVID, add 4 Snowmageddon days, and we're still close in the total number of minutes as any previous 4 years. That's amazing to me. Amazing. And so our recommendation is to decrease the number of school days by 3 days to end school on Friday, May 21st. It still leaves 2.39 bank days, which is typical in our year to year. And so with that, Ms. Sells will absolutely try to answer any questions.
Okay. Let's start over here. Ms. Hassett?
How will high school or middle school, secondary, deal with the finals at the end of the year? Like the dead week type time frame? When will instruction end and dead week start for review if we change and we move up the date?
Yeah, so finals are always the last day and a half at high school. They do that where you don't have 4 finals all in one day. So that Thursday, the 20th, would be a full day. And of course, then it would be an early release day for high schools because they have 2 finals and then
So then review.
That is built into the calendar that I know you printed, and I think we provided copies for everyone on.
So instruction would continue until May 14th? And then the dead week would start that next.
You know, and I'll let maybe one of the high school principals, maybe Mr. Skelton or Mr. Kodge, since it's not that far removed. But really, there's, when we talk about dead week, I mean, it's not a week that they're doing nothing except studying.
A lot of
for it.
review.
It's not quite the same as in college, but I don't know if you have any input or Kendra or Will.
That week leading up to finals is, you got your principals and teachers and students have their foot completely on the gas pedal. They're filling in missed assignments. They're trying to get content better understood leading into the final exam. So, like Dr. Rogers said, the thought process of a dead week compared to what goes on in college that's not what happens.
They're doing reviews for tests. Talk
about differentiated instruction at full-blown level during that week, because you have some students who have the content knowledge and they're ready. You have some that they're filling in, so those teachers are actually working completely different probably that last week to get everybody on that same playing field and that level ground heading into the final exams.
Will, do you or Andy or Kendra?
I agree. There's no dead week. We need every day to pull many of our kiddos across the stage at graduation, and that's what we're doing the full several last weeks of schooling, and even during days of finals.
I agree. Even on a 9th and 10th grade level, we're doing so now when 10th grade, 10th grade school.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Hassett, do you have more?
I guess that's all.
We can come
But
back.
the answer is really, it bumps it up a week, though, really,
It bumps it up 3 days.
3 days. Okay,
Instead of school getting out Wednesday the 26th, it gets out Friday the 21st.
okay.
So 3 days.
Nope, that was my only end of your question.
All right.
Okay. Ms. President?
I really struggle because you just got through making a case for adding 4 days to the first 9 weeks because you needed that time for added instruction, and now you want to take away 2.5 days at the end of the next 9 weeks.
Well, the
I mean,
adding,
that's what you're doing. You're taking away 2.5 days at the end of the last 9 weeks. That's what you're asking for.
you're moving the 4 days to balance the 9 weeks to
Right.
40 and 42.
So that we have
or-
time for instruction
or
and to
45,
bring
so-
kids along. And now now you're asking us to take away 2.5 days at the end of the second 9 weeks.
I get the difficulty of the decision.
That's where some of my struggle lies, because I did, and I know we don't do days. I want to say that up front. I know we don't do days, but I did days actually in class. And in the first semester, we had 81 days in class. And in the second semester, and I'm not counting the waiver because those are not days in class, where we were we're going to be at 85 if we don't change the calendar. And then we also have the lovely STAR test that happens. And the reason the spring semester has always been longer is because of the STAR test. I am not a fan. If we could get out of it, I would do it, and I would say we end school May 1st. But we still have the STAR test, and that will still take up a good chunk of instructional days for a lot of our students. If we do the early release without the waiver, that is only 78 days in the second semester. And that includes STAR days. And that's where I really struggle. So, I mean, I don't know if I have a question. It is not about not appreciating the hard work that staff has done or acknowledging their pivoting and their bending. It is about an obligation to make sure kids are fully prepared. And, you know, you may say 2.5 days isn't that great. Well, then, you know, we just gave 4 days or the board is voting on whether or not we're going to give 4 days to the first 9 weeks. So, I mean, that's where my struggle is right now. I also heard from a lot of elementary parents that were talking about having to do a week of daycare now. They're going to have to pay for a week of daycare that they were not intending. That was not part of their original plan.
And that's a great point, Ms. Prosnick. And so when Dr. Rapp talked about ESD being flexible and nimble, we actually began discussions, if the board approves this, that we will provide without a cost those 3 days to elementary parents and some type of ESD type programming at their elementary schools. And we actually had discussions today about providing some other type of programming for 6th and 7th grade middle school students, probably more like some STEM academy stuff and, you know, sports, combining, you know, some of those. So that's a very, very fair question as far as we get, and that was one of the points that one of the parents for the parent advisory is, for many families this works, for some it doesn't. What are some options? And that's what we discussed. I get the struggle of you take some, you lose some. I guess my answer to that is this is unlike any other situation that any of us have ever been in, and that's why I think it's still the right thing to do.
We would still be ending the school year 5 days before Memorial Day, which I think is earlier than we've ever, to my best recollection, that's earlier than we've ever ended school, at least in the last 7 or 8 years, from my memory. So it's not like we're, you know, not going to be in June or we're going after Memorial Day. It's just, I won't lie, I really struggle. I get the extra time off for teachers who have really risen to the occasion, but, you know, I'm just verbally processing here that that's where I struggle.
Well, and I get the struggle. I think the point that one of the principals that I read their statement makes is that 25 extra minutes a day is really a whole lot more than 25 minutes a day by the things that our teachers have been expected to do and have just stepped up to do. I mean, every time they have a student quarantine, that's extra work for that teacher. A lot of that happens either on their conference period or at night. I mean, so I get the struggle. It's a very valid point. But I just think if there's ever a time that we need to try to make sure that our staff and families, there's families that, I mean, I was surprised that it was unanimous, my parent advisory. I think everyone is just ready to be done with this year.
Ms. Sells, I have one more question.
Yes, Ms. Hess.
For EOCs, we have virtual, the kids that are in person who don't have to have EOCs are going virtual for high school on the 6th of April, and then on the, 4th and 5th of May? So those 3 days in this shenanigans that the high school students not taking EOCs will move to virtual so that we can have room to have the kids come back to class to take their lovely EOCs.
I need to confirm those dates because I feel like the 6th is I just need to double check, but that.
Oh, the 9th.
Yes, I think it's,
9th.
yes.
9th.
I think our proposal right now is the 9th, and we're still ironing out some details, but that's the proposal that we've put together to work with our high school campuses. So that's 3 days.
The good thing about that is in the past, a lot of times the campuses have had to shut down to do testing, and now students are going to be at home virtually learning. The other piece that hits a little bit different this year is we're not having retesters in terms of 5th and 8th grade as well, so there's actually fewer testing days in the calendar than there are normally. So there are a little bit of differences. The AP windows are a little bit different, so we're navigating a whole new land of assessment as well in this time, and we're learning to be flexible with that. So those are just all those different pieces that weigh a little bit differently than in the previous years.
And one of the other differences I would say too, and this goes to the question about, well, what about the impact of virtual by moving the end of the third 9 weeks? We'll say, if you have for kids taking tests, some virtual students are not going to come up to tests. They're going to keep learning their
everybody but
content
high school has to.
all right along.
Yeah, high school.
The high school people that come for graduation, absolutely. But that, again, is just an example of how, you find yourself in the testing is going to impact us in some ways, and it's not going to impact us in others. And I just to reinforce and share with Dr. Rogers' struggle, we did struggle absolutely with is the time aspect of it and the conversation of that. And unfortunately, and we couldn't ask Snowmageddon to occur at a different time. I wish to all wishes it would not have occurred so close to going into semester exams. And while elementary and middle don't face the same pressure quite with semester exams like high schools do, the Snowmageddon leading into that placed that conversation at a different place, as opposed to it just has to be about time for the extra learning. The time for getting that best grade is a bonus, but they're leading right into a semester exam out of Snowmageddon and people still struggling to fix their homes and all the things. Who could have ever imagined? You couldn't have imagined. And so that's really just why we still were recommending the end of the third 9 weeks, more so even than the timing component, if you will. I hope that helps.
Ms. Cox?
So I'm kind of like with Ms. Prosnick. So in the end, it's about our kids and their education. And I think I agree. I mean, I support ending the school year early. But what I'm most concerned about is how do we start them the next year? And how do we get prepared? So even though we're banking some days and everybody needs a little break and a little stress-free, but what does that do for, it looks like the teachers and staff are still in the classroom. So are they getting to leave on the 21st too, like all the kids are? Or are they staying extra days? And then what does that do to prepare them for next year? Are they going to have to then come early? So really, they're not gaining anything.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, Ms. Cox. Our expectation is that they would get to leave on those teachers, those contracted employees, not myself, not people in this room, but those teachers, those paraprofessional, their last day would be the 21st too. Now, what does that allow? That allows one, for them to get a break, get a deep breath before we do start summer programming, which we could start sooner. And all the things that we've got to put in place professional learning-wise, we can start sooner. But I think it does allow them to say, okay, I've made it to here, back off, deep breath, prop my feet up. Now we've got a new year. And we know a little more about what the new year is going to hold, even though there's still a lot of unanswered questions than what we knew going into this year. We know we don't need all these banked minutes like we thought we might need in July. We didn't know that we could pivot, so we know those kind of things that we won't have to mess with next school year. But there's still unanswered questions, no doubt, about next school year. I'm hoping, I've seen different reports. Some people tell us, hey, we're still going to be in some mode of this COVID until next January, February. And then I've seen some recent things where, hey, if we can get to the summer's, and more people, as they continue to get immunized, the summer's going to get a little more normal. The cold weather next fall is going to cause a little bit of a spike. And then, so I think that uncertainty still causes some stress to people, and I know it does all of us,
Well, and I think the calendar has caused a lot of angst and frustration for a lot of parents.
Sure.
The comments I've heard was, how many times are you going to change this as a board? But as to Ms. Lasan saying earlier, we've had to be flexible, and some of these things are just out of our control. Nobody planned the snowstorm, but, we're having to make exceptions and arrangements for it. But
Yeah, and it's not a typical snowstorm. I mean,
Right.
this is I think Ms. Prodnick said it, though. I'm tired of all these unprecedented things. We'd
I
like
don't
to
live in
get to,
precedented times.
we'd like some precedented stuff, not once in a lifetime snowstorms, once in a lifetime pandemic, so I totally get, and I get the parents' frustration. We don't, I think y'all know me well. I don't like, it's just been an aberration, and I think we've just got to accept that it is what it is.
I hate losing instruction time for our kids because I think it's more important than ever right now, just because of the virtual learning and going back and forth. But I do agree, everybody needs a mental break. And a lot of that's good just to regroup and refresh yourself to be prepared in that classroom. I mean, frustration is real, and it is there. I mean, I see it in my own job, not even being a teacher. But so I think it's a good decision, but I'm really going to, be firm and strong on how are we getting prepared for next year to make sure our kids that are behind are good.
Well, and I want to make it clear to those watching, I know the people in the room, I mean, I appreciate that the board has made it very clear with not only, hey, what do you need, but resources to make sure that we put in place not only current summer programs, but additional summer programming and built-in programming within the school year to make sure that we catch kids up. So please know, all of us as teachers, myself, I mean, we know what we need to do, and we will do that, and I appreciate the board's support on that.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Ms. Lasan?
So I do support ending the year early, and I've thought about this for a long time. I've actually am blessed to have several friends that are teachers, and actually all over in very different places in the district and doing different things. And even this weekend, I spoke with one who said, really, believe it or not, that 25 minutes, it's just been exhausting to teachers and to staff. And I'm going to pick on you, Mr. Holt, since you're still here. On one of his things, he said, and this is what I have heard over and over and over again, is everyone is worn out, staff, students, and other stakeholders, and it would be a huge boost to morale for staff and students to know that the finish line is May 21st. So, I mean, I understand, the worry about, minutes and all this kind of stuff, and I know that I have full confidence that our district is going to do the best for our students for next year to get us where we're going. They need to be. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that back to the 25 minutes, whenever we agreed to that last year, one of the things that we talked about, and one of the things that you said, Dr. Rogers, is that, we're banking these minutes in hopes that we don't have to use them. Well, we haven't had to use them. And I believe that staff and even parents kind of have gone into this thinking, okay, we're doing these extra 25 minutes. It's a pain in the rear, but we're going to get some benefit of it because we're going to get out of school early. And whether or not that was promised to them, may not be the truth, but that is what they're feeling. And I will say, and I say that with confidence because I've talked to several, at least 4 or 5 principals that I, run into, and I've talked to, like I said, teachers and different parents, not just where my kids go to school, but different places. And I really think that that this is really important, and I feel like we're going to have a lot of upset people if we don't. And I know sometimes you don't want to make decisions based on making somebody mad, but I also think that it is going to be very beneficial for all the reasons that have been said by everyone here for us to end on the 21st.
Mr. Miller?
Wow. This is one where I think we're all trying to resist, or maybe not, the temptation to micromanage this, and here are my thoughts. We had talked on 2 occasions about ending the school year early. It's very well known, it's on record, that we would come back and consider that option. It's probably a month earlier than we thought as it relates to when we might have made that recommendation, but the weather events created a situation. I'm not sure in looking at it, by the way, that it's an effective 3.5 days, because if you take a bad weather day out from the previous calendar option and some other things, it's probably a day and a half, 2 days net. But there are a couple of things that I'd like to remind folks. The 25 minutes was not intended to be for what teachers do other than instruction. And so I want to say very respectfully, because I think we do a really good job of trying to make this a great place to work, that time was intended for instruction. And we understand and appreciate that campuses have to make decisions on how to use that time, and teachers need to make decisions on it. But it was intended for instruction. Therefore, because it was intended for instruction, we didn't have the pivot that we thought we would. Therefore, I think we should honor it from that perspective. Now, what's the variable? Snowmageddon. And for me, it comes down to outcomes. You all are committing to a set of outcomes, performance outcomes that we've discussed. And your recommendation is, given the situation, that the means to the end is important. And you're asking us to change the means, right, the dates. And I think that we should lean in that direction and just know that in May, to Ms. Cox's point, we're going to have we need to do a real autopsy on, or June, like we did this last year. How do we do? What do we need to do better? And the last thing I would say is, I don't think we spare any expense to what it takes for this summer to prepare teachers or provide some form of educational alternatives to students who need it, to make sure that they are prepared for next year and can maintain grade level, maintain performance, be successful at the next level that they're going to.
Do y'all have any additional over here? On the those days that you would offer extended school day, would that come with transportation?
That's not something that we've discussed, but we can certainly, to be honest with you, it would not hurt our budget to provide the transportation, because we would have been paying that contract anyway, so it would probably make sense to offer that. We haven't worked out all the details. We just want to make it clear we can work out those details if that's the decision of the board.
And I'm assuming food service would also be included in that?
I'm sorry?
Food service.
Yes, food service. And of course, as a reminder, and I know the board knows this, but as a reminder to, our parents and everyone else, we have summer feed programs already. We've been doing that for years, and we would absolutely feed those students. So.
And let me ask you this, because we talked about, that was part of the goals that we've been discussing, is this more robust intervention program for the summer. When will we know how that's going to look? And why I say this is because for those teachers, and I have a number of teacher friends across the district, and I reached out to a lot of them over the weekend talking, because it's a struggle these days of instruction, and they all, one or two of them said, I haven't made a decision on what I would do this summer, but if I got out early and I had time to kind of step back and reflect, I might want to step forward and be part of that this summer. But feeling like I do right now, I feel like that I wouldn't be. And even though it's 3 days, and I kept saying, for 3 days, and they said, it kind of fulfills a spirit that we entered the school year believing. And so whatever, and that goes to Mr. Miller's point about what whether it's the truth or not, the way that they felt. And so I think for me, even though I really struggle with the loss of instruction, I'm leaning toward ending early just because I think that it gives us the opportunity, because we end up going the 3 days. We're not going to, Thursday and Friday, will they be the most productive as a full week? Probably not in moving forward into the summer. And so for me, I think that I just really want assurance and confidence that these summer programs that we're really going to be working to fulfill that lost education there, that we haven't seen this. And whether that means just preparing them for the beginning of school next year, or whether it be for making up for what they have not learned this year. Either way, I think it's important that that robustness of the summer happens. And it happens for everybody, because it doesn't matter where you live. We've got kids not far from this building that will not be living in their home the rest of the school year because of damage. They're going to be living in a hotel with 4 siblings and parents. And they're struggling, and it's not just one family. It's multiple families across the district. And so that's where I stand. Does anybody have anything?
Yeah, and just Ms. Sells, first off, and I know I've said this, but please know I feel the angst of Ms. Hassett and, Ms. Prosnick. I mean, as far as this, I promise you, we had this discussion around the table of the struggle. I totally get it. I do want to be clear. We're going to have more robust summer programming and integrated than ever before. But please know, we're not going to catch all these students up just this summer. That didn't happen. Right. So I want to be real clear. This is not a one summer deal or a 1 year deal. This is an ongoing deal, and I greatly appreciate the board's support that, hey, as Mr. Miller said, hey, do whatever it takes. And we are absolutely will take that attitude of trying to provide that service to our students and families. But I didn't want to be remiss.
I get that, and that was not my expectation.
But I just wanted to be clear. So, Ms. Prosnick.
I appreciate that, because somewhere Ms. Gall, if she's listening and working on a summer program, is worried. One quick point that, to your point about also the school year, and Ms. Garrison is the one that is thinking of this, but this school year being so different, we haven't had field trips, we haven't had pep rallies. We've gained some instructional time in different ways that in a traditional school year, that would have been somewhere else. Those things are all important. Please hear me. I'm not saying in future years we should not have field trips or pep rallies. That is not what I'm saying. But we did gain some different instructional time by not having those things.
I appreciate that point. My question, I'm going to swing back to summer programs. So when is that going to start? The end of our school year does not affect the start of those summer programs, I guess is my question.
Yeah, normally, and I'll defer to Dr. Rapp, but normally it's like you end school, you don't have anything for a week, and then you start up. And so, my assumption is...
That would be the day after Memorial Day, which I think would be really, if you talk about being inhumane, I think that would be really inhumane.
Yeah, no, I don't know why you would wait much longer than a week.
So you're talking about the day after Memorial Day?
I'm going to defer. Sure. We're still having those discussions. Okay. All I promise you is that we're going to have more enhanced summer learning programs than ever before, and more. We're going to take what we have and enhance that, and we're going to have more opportunities for kids than ever before. So please don't lock me into a certain day.
I'm not trying to lock you into a date.
Okay.
But when you say, well, we take a week off, taking a week off puts you the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And if the point of ending school early is to give staff a break and so forth, that does not just looking at days on a calendar, that doesn't look I don't think then we're accomplishing what the intent is.
I think there's a couple of ways that you give staff a rest.
Okay.
One is they get their part of their summer programming, whatever it is, done in the first month of the summer, and they still have a whole month and a half left, or they do it, half days so there's a lot of different combinations that we can do our summer programming and still give people the break that they need. And so I promise you, we're going to be wrapping our heads around what does it look like. We're not there yet. All I promise is we will be there.
Well, and to that point, not all intervention happens right after school ends.
Yeah.
Right.
Some intervention is a jump start before the school year starts. So intervention takes many different shapes and forms and sizes.
It was just that 1 week.
And you've tasked us with creating some new
Yes.
interventions too. And so that's, I promise you, that's what we're working on.
Okay. I think that was all my questions. I had to go through my. Okay, does anybody have any more comments? Questions? Okay.
So, Ms. Sells, in the order of the board agenda, and I'm fine to move that way. I know it's really resolution, and, if you want to make alterations to the resolution, please know. I will tell you what we're getting bombarded with, and when I say we, Ms. Smith over there, is people wanting to know, hey, am I going to get paid? When I say people, non-exempt employees, hourly employees, am I going to get paid for those 4 days? That's the main reason why this resolution is there. You want to scrap the rest of it? I could really care less. But I want to be able to help Ms. Smith communicate that, yes, the board took action, passed a resolution, you are going to get paid. I don't know if you have other questions about the resolution, but that's really the main thing that, when Ms. Bay brought it up in our leadership team meeting, it's like, yeah, we got to answer that question. So.
Absolutely.
I do have a question. Other resolutions, you have given us updates on action you've taken or will be taking, so I'm assuming you'll be doing the same thing?
Yeah, in the past, we will absolutely, I understand the board is granting me temporary authority to get some of this stuff done. For instance, one of the things that we removed is, hey, because we had tonight's meeting and we have next Monday night's meeting, we took off emergency purchases. We're going to be buying stuff, but we have time to bring that in front of the board. But there were some items that it's like, we got to tell people they're getting paid or not.
Yeah, and before we go into discussion, let's go ahead and move into the next part of the action, and we can go ahead and have Ms. Bay bring forth the resolution, and then we can make the motion in second.
Some discussion before we make the motion.
You want to? Yes, we'll have her present it. We'll have discussion, and then we'll move into the action. Okay? I don't want to get too much discussion going before we've actually had the presentation
Thank
of
you.
the resolution. Okay, thank you guys very much.
Thanks for sitting in the hot seats.
Yes.
On your birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Yes.
Whose birthday?
Dr. Fisher's.
Oh, happy birthday, Dr. Fitzhugh. Okay.
So, Ms. Bay?
Okay, Ms. Bay, you're up.
Awesome. Thank you, President Sells. So before you have the resolution regarding delegation of authority regards to the winter storm, a.k.a. Snowmageddon, a.k.a. COVID-21. So what we have is just a general resolution, as Dr. Rogers stated, in regards paying employees. There are also other portions in it. I've sent the board a couple emails on it, and without the chance of getting into legal advice in public session, I have sent those emails. As you know, it just provides administration with some flexibility on some decisions that might be made. Similar school districts are doing these. Many have much more broad resolutions, but as we stated, we kind of pared it back for what Lewisville ISD actually needs. As stated, administration will keep the board aware, and as always, just because authority is delegated doesn't mean that it will actually be used. So I'm happy to entertain any questions that the board may have. And as Dr. Rogers said, if there are portions that the board does not want in the resolution, those can easily be removed, and we can do a resolution for an amended resolution.
Okay, let's start with Ms. Prosnick.
Well, I will use my favorite Coco Chanel quote, which is, there's a lot of accessories here, and I think we need to take off a few to make it look better. I am all for paying our exempt, our non-exempt employees. I think that is a given. There are some I don't know what the word is exactly on it. It is some delegations that I don't quite understand why they are necessary. For example, number 7, I don't understand why that is necessary. I don't understand why the calendar is necessary, especially since we're getting ready to, number 2, which is we're getting ready to vote on that. The waivers that came earlier in our discussion, I also don't understand why emergency assistance. It's my understanding. I mean, we have a board meeting on Monday if we needed to do that as well, because Snowmageddon's over. The repercussions are certainly not over for a lot of our families, but to me, the emergency has come and gone. I just like a real minimalist kind of a resolution where we absolutely can give authority for waivers and for paying non-exempt employees. The rest, I think, is too much jewelry, so to speak.
Well, and I'm a low jewelry person, Ms. Prosnick, I totally agree with 1 and 3 are the most crucial. I have no problems whatsoever with number 2 being struck. I don't know, Ms. Bay, if you have some other. I do know that we've been asked even as recent, and I don't know that most of it would require board action, but we have been recently sent things from TEA regarding FEMA, regarding TDM, Texas Department of Emergency Management, things that they're asking us to submit, cost of recovery, and so I think that's probably the cover that, Ms. Bay added that. I don't think it's something that's a time-sensitive thing, so I absolutely believe that, 1 and 3 are the most critical. But I don't know, Ms. Bay, if you have any other input.
I would also specifically advocate for number 4 regarding the Texas Public Information Act, and I will advocate for my paralegal, Ingrid, in those timelines for the board declaring an emergency that does not have the timeline run on those 5 days where we weren't actually at the district. It might relieve a little pressure off her shoulders.
Absolutely. I completely
That makes
understand.
sense.
I'm good. 1, 3, and 4, my favorites.
Okay, Ms. Cox?
I would agree with Ms. Prosnick.
Okay. Ms. Hassan?
I personally think that if Ms. Bay felt that they needed to be in there, I trust her judgment, and I'm fine with it as written. I mean, to me, nothing in there is, I don't worry about it. I like jewelry.
Okay. Mr. Miller?
I think that this, again, we've had an opportunity to understand the items that might be included within legal parameters. I guess pork might be the other way of looking at it. I'm not suggesting that this is pork, but, $1.9 trillion program, and $400 million goes to the arts. I mean, I don't think we're talking about that type of thing, right? I think when we've granted resolutions in the past where we've had some concerns in retrospect, where we've worked together, I think, amicably on how, we would like some things rolled out in the future. As a result, what I would like to propose is that we actually take a vote on the item as it is. If it fails, then we can decompose it, and we're going to have multiple resolutions at that point, potentially, because what if it's 1, 3, and 4 okay with you, and Christy wants 2 and 5, and I want 6, right? So
This is your opportunity to say that, though.
Well, I understand, but maybe we won't all agree on what needs to be taken out. For example, I actually don't have a problem with the resolution period, but I don't have a problem with some of the emergency potential coming from FEMA where Dr. Rogers has the ability to accept that, or, this is not just about paying the employees. I mean, that is an easy one for us, which, by the way, I would note will get forgotten very quickly, right, by staff, Mrs. Smith. They do, it does. And here's where working for an ISD has some merit. We did this last year. We have paid a lot of employees for not having to work because of the crisis. We have respected the fact that it has impacted them, and I hope that that does not get lost in this, that the primary objective, as you stated, Dr. Rogers, is to pay these employees who didn't have to work. Because if they were hourly employees making $12 or $15 or $7.25 at Whataburger or wherever, they're not getting paid, right? So we're paying these folks, and I'm glad that we are. I just would suggest that if this may pass as is, rather than decompose it, then we just pass it, whatever it is. If we want to decompose it, I think we're going to get into, what if she wants to, you guys like 3, but what if somebody wants 4? I mean, where do we stop on that? That's just my thought. It's going to get very complex.
I do have a question.
Yes, Ms. Hafford.
There is no end date on this. So when is the...
Ms. Bay.
So similar to past authority delegations that you have passed, there isn't one. The board can revoke it, but please know that it's specifically to deal with the winter storm crisis. So any action taken under this delegation would be specifically about that.
Okay, so then I don't mind, because I did have a question on number 2, because it's bizarre to me that it's on there, and because we've already gone past snow bid, so I didn't know what other, barring action tonight, I didn't know what other necessary calendar changes. Do you have any idea what number 2 is, the authorization for school calendar changes,
yeah,
emergency closures?
Ms. Hassett, I didn't write the resolution.
Okay.
So our general counsel did, and so I think, and so we just didn't remove it, but okay. You're right. I really don't see number 2 as needed.
But you don't expect anything else?
I sure hope not, but
And Trustee Hassett, I did write the resolution, and
on real wood.
As a lawyer, I do live in worst case scenario, so it is included in the resolution on the weird off chance that something that we had not discussed, but I have no issue removing that if the board wishes to do so.
Here's what I may offer. I think that's a great point. We had the resolution earlier last year. We revoked it at a certain point in time. It was time to revoke it for different reasons. I would offer that if you change the calendar beyond what we've talked about tonight, it may be revoked pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would offer that there might be some other consequences. So I don't really live in that world, Mr. Miller. That's why I've worked here so long.
I also like to add that I'm surprised that Mr. Miller didn't jibe me on the fact that I'm not bugging you on the whereases. Yeah.
Well,
I have a whereas thing.
This is just a honeymoon period.
It's funny is I just recently watched a video with Mr. Crownover where you enacted your COVID resolution, and I heard about the Hassett rule, and I thought, oh no.
Oh yeah.
It's
coming.
My question was to Dr. Rogers, because number 2 to me also led to the fact, or to down that path, that we've had damage at schools, and God forbid that there would be anything that would happen while those repairs are being made. But I also do know that and I was researching things that happened during repairs after these, and there was more damage done during the repair because of things happening that were not controlled, say like a spark from a welder started a fire, and so they ended up going to Saturday school at one of those campuses because of loss of instruction. And I think that would be a last resort for us. I think we would try to disperse our students to other campuses, but I'm like Ms. Prosnick in the fact that first, it was like, well, we've got that on the thing, but then going past that, I saw bigger possibilities for that, for better. But
I still need an explanation for number 7.
yeah, in number 7, I just didn't.
Bizarre.
I wanted examples.
I still need an explanation for number 7.
Yeah.
Once again, as I stated, it's very, very worst case scenario that I live in. And I will be the first to admit that I have not taught in the classroom. So I like to give our administration the flexibility. If something that hadn't even crossed our mind were to occur, we would be able to have some flexibility to do that if we didn't have a board meeting coming for another 2 or 3 weeks.
And Ms. Brasi, did you want to follow up on that? Or?
No.
If I recall, I think when all of you put this together, you did some consultation with other attorneys, other superintendents, other districts as to hypotheticals, language that they were using, that type of thing. I mean, I agree with Ms. Prosnick. I mean, and Ms. Sells, I don't know what that would be. I mean, I think, you know what pops into my mind? 69-100, pass, fail. Now, again, you might see a pretty quick revocation if that were to go into effect, but that's a possibility, right? You could do that. I don't think you will, but is there any hypothetical other than something like that?
Yeah,
we went into a massive COVID shutdown, and we had to go to construction different. And
But this only applies to the week we were closed.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's nothing that's going. I mean, what I gather then is that you don't have any plans to make it. So I think what you're suggesting, it's redundant because it's over and you're not recommending any changes. But
I think, Mr. Miller, what Ms. Bay has said, and please know I'm still okay, and I know you mentioned you wanted to have a vote on the whole resolution, but I'm okay cutting to the chase and making 1, 3, and 4 the thing and being done. I think Ms. Bay, and rightfully so, wanted to provide an all-encompassing what-if scenario. I think some of that's passed. And you know what? If not, and something comes up, we can sure get you back together again. So, I mean, if we could just get 1, 3, and 4 approved, I'm good.
And let me ask for direction from Ms. Bay. Ms. Bay, do we need to go ahead and bring the full resolution, or can we do an amended resolution?
No, we
do it as the first motion.
The delegations of 1, 3, and 4.
You can do an amended motion for an amended resolution.
For the 1, 3, and 4. Okay. And it would be okay to just say that the following delegations, 1, 3, and 4, is listed on the resolution? And then would they become 1, 2, and 3?
Sure.
On the
Madam
resolution?
Sells, could I raise a point of order?
Go ahead.
I would really like to call for a vote on it as it is. I think what we're doing is we're going to have to go back. She's going to have to print it for signature tonight by the president, the secretary. I think fair points have been made, right, about some of the items. There's no harm in approving it as is.
I guess my attorney always told me that when it was in writing, it was in writing, and my intent and my verbose didn't matter, but what it said was what mattered.
Exactly. And our general counsel, who does report to us, has written a resolution, and I'm offering that we vote on that resolution. If it fails, then we can go ahead and modify it as appropriate.
Okay. Do you want to make that motion, Mr. Miller?
Sure. I move that the board adopt the resolution regarding delegation of authority during the 2021 winter storm emergency as recommended by administration.
Do I have a second? Ms. Hassan? All in favor?
Aye.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Motion carries 5 and opposed, and 5 to 1. Okay. Okay, up next is the resolution for the 2021 academic calendar.
And Ms. Sells, I know it has Dr. Rapp, but really we had this written to where you could do either or. In other words, you can add it all, talking about the end of the third 9 weeks, and move the end of the school year, or you could just strike part of it, and so that's why.
Or we can break it into two.
Or you can
I will
absolutely
refer to
break it into two separate motions. Ms. Riggle and I tried to figure out what was the best way to pose it for you all, but anyway.
Okay. Dr. Rapp, do you have anything additional to add as far as the discussion of that?
I do not.
Okay, then Ms. Hassett, I will ask you to make the first motion.
I'm not sure you want me to make the first motion. I'm going to be opposing it, so.
I'll make the first motion.
Okay.
I move that the board approve the revisions to the 2020-2021 academic calendar, moving the end of the third 9 weeks to Friday, March 12th,
Do you want to add as presented by administration?
as presented by administration, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. President. Thank you. Sorry
Jump.
about that. Okay, second by Ms. Cox. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries on the amendment of moving the end of the third 9 weeks to Friday, March the 12th, 5-1.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and you'll make the second. Okay.
I move the board approve the revisions, I move the board approve moving the end of the school year to Friday, May 21st, as presented by administration.
Okay, do I have a second on that? Ms. Lasan? Let me get my notes correct, please. Any additional discussion? If not, all in favor? That motion carries 6-0. Okay, and that concludes our action items. Moving on to our discussion items,
For finance.
Finance.
or into I-2. I almost said 1-2, but that's not a 1. That's an I, and that's my
The
pause.
only thing I don't like about
That was my pause. Okay.
Calibrate,
So
yeah.
moving into discussion items
I need
1-2,
Sarah's.
as we discussed 1A previously in the meeting. So, okay. Perfect.
Facility agenda items will be presented by Mr. Vite.
Good evening. So I've got a few items tonight. The first one, excuse me, is for the RFQ 2517-17, Step 2 for CMAR selections. So back in October of 2020, we moved a couple of projects forward from year 5 in order to save some additional inflation dollars. One of those projects was the LHS Fine Arts additions and renovations. And the other project in here is the Durham Middle School track. It should be noted that we had not previously selected a CMAR for the other 2 Year 4 middle school tracks, which are at Creek Valley and Lakeview Middle School. So all the projects that I just mentioned are identified in the 2017 bond, and they have funding identified as well. There is one additional project that we've been asked to perform, which is for additional parking at Central Elementary and the Aquatic Center East. So since this parking project is not part of the bond, our recommendation is to fund it from bond interest earnings, which we currently have a little over $4 million in that account. We estimate the total project cost for this to be around $800,000. The attached bid tabulation shows the bid numbers. One important note that doesn't show up on that bid tab is that Lee Lewis was invited to bid on 4.8 and 4.9, but did not turn in bids. And North Star Builders was also invited on 4.7 and 4.8, but did not bid on those. Both companies cited workload and availability for this summer as reasons why. So most of the time for our summer work, we have CMARs on board way ahead of where we are now in March. So in all fairness, that's why they didn't turn in bids on those. So as you can see on the bid tabulation, Pogue Construction is the lowest bidder on all 3 packages. Now, as you know, per Section 2269 of the Government Code, we look at many other items. We look at purchase price, the team submitted, experience and reputation, quality of goods and services, safety records, bonding capacity, and other relevant factors. So every firm that we work with has been a great partner of the district. At this point, we have 3 years of experience with all these firms, and any of these CMARs could perform this work and all score well on the other relevant factors. You know, we always evaluate workload, complexity of the project, and good fit for the team, et cetera. So in taking that into account on these 3 projects, with Lewisville High School, fine arts additions and renovations, Poe Construction is already at Lewisville High School, currently working on the Lewisville High School athletics renovations, and that project ends essentially when this one begins. And so I think that's why their general conditions were a little lower, is because they're assuming they can just roll right in to that other project. That's their approach. When you look at the other 2 projects, you know, the budgets are fairly small. So you have 3 middle school tracks with a total budget of around $600,000 for construction cost. And then the parking lots, the construction cost budget around $560,000. And so, you know, looking at the difference between low bid and the next bidder, you know, on the middle school tracks, you're looking at about $34,000 to go to the second bidder. And then on the parking lots, it's about a $20,000 difference, $21,000 difference. So our recommendation will be brought forth as a consent item next Monday night. And with that, I'd love to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, let's start with Ms. Cox. Do you have any questions for Mr. Fite?
Just really quick, do you anticipate any increased cost because of this environment that we're in right now? These
No,
projects?
I don't. And you'll see, I'm taking 4 GMPs tonight, and so we're still seeing good numbers from Subcon.
Okay.
Ms. Lassonde?
No questions.
So the parking at Central, when did that come up?
So really, the issue came up at the end of the central renovation. So there was no, there was no parking, there's no exterior work on the central interior renovation for special ed. And so it's become very clear now that special ed has moved in that we need some additional parking there. And of the 2 projects, I mean, that's the minor one. So at Eastside Aquatic, we're actually looking at adding an entire new parking lot.
Okay.
Which, I'm sorry, Miss, which I know when the board remembers when we sold that adjacent land to the Eastside Aquatic Center, we carved out to expand the parking. And so that's really the biggest piece of this. But really, we're revamping some existing parking area at Central and adding
a handful of space, maybe
7 or 8.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So I'm not objecting to it. I'm just curious. You know, like if this was an elementary school, I know it's a little bit different type of usage, but we'd be taking away from something, right? Or a middle school. What are we taking away from? Nothing? Some green space, basically, to do some park at Central in particular.
Right. Great point. So Central's a very tight site, and so there's not a lot of extra space.
Right.
One thing that we're going to take advantage of is we have more ADA parking spaces than we currently need, right? And so some of those have the van loading, striping in between, and so we're taking advantage of restriping the parking lot and kind of recapturing a few spaces here or there. Then there is a small space, basically in between the parking lot and the what small play area that they have. Near the kind of the hard surface play court, where we're going to add a few spaces that Dr. Rogers mentioned.
The tracks, you said the tracks were not originally in the 2017 bond package, or they were?
No, sir, the tracks were. Yes.
They were.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Parking lots.
we're just
the parking.
The way
lot.
they're packaged in this, we're okay. And then the same for the fine arts. That was in.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Because as a reminder, we did some things. With extra bond money we had for LHS that should have probably gotten done when LHS was, remember the theater, sound system, et cetera. We're not talking about something like that where this was planned for, et cetera.
Right.
Right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Ms. Hassett?
No questions.
Ms. Presnick?
Has Poe built one of our fine arts facilities?
Most of the fine arts have been Jackson Construction and Core Construction. The Polk has not done one of the fine arts yet, right, in our district.
Right. I was just kind of curious. So you think that the reason that they came in slow is just because they're just going to walk across the parking lot?
So one of the things that contractors take into account is their general conditions number, right? So their staffing, setting up the trailers, the mobilization, all that stuff. So since they've been living at LHS for the past year, basically, they're working with the campus. They have a good idea of traffic flow and how to work staging for materials and all those things. And so I think that is a factor why you see some of the general conditions a little lower on that one.
Can we get them counted into WADA? I mean, they're there, right? Just ask them.
They'd have to have seat time.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I think, for me, back to Mr. Miller's, the Central Elementary, that is along Lake Haven. We haven't seen, will you be bringing, when you bring this for action, will you be bringing maps?
I certainly can, yes.
Okay. So this is along Lake Haven, and my concern is that end of Central, parking is tight, and I'm over there all the time because I keep ordering stuff and have to pick it up. And one day I almost had to park at Brahms and walk over. And so I think that it's the work that they're doing there is so essential, and yet I see, when I'm there, I constantly see people struggling to find parking, and it's not just people that pick up. A lot of people have that stuff delivered. I just like to go in and see it. But there are employees, and they're struggling to find parking, and yet if they park, the business they have is over here, but they have to park all over there. It's quite a haul, especially if you end up working late or whatever and going back out the way that you're designated to go out. So that parking is that area, and I guess that's what I'm...
Yes, so again, the ADA spaces are kind of scattered out throughout both the elementary side and the special ed side. But the additional parking would be on the Lake Haven side of the property, like you mentioned, kind of right next to the place, or the soccer field where they play soccer.
Okay. But we wouldn't be disturbing that at all?
No, it would go into the area between the parking lot and where that soccer field is. It's right in between there. Right.
We'll bring the map.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would say probably the best time to bring the map would be when we bring the GMP forth, because right now we're still kind of in design and working through things.
Okay.
Also would mention we've put a lot of thought and effort into this parking situation at Central. We've explored a lot of different options, and some of them just frankly weren't viable because of the city of Lewisville. The ordinances that are there. Some of the things that we have to work with the existing streets and right-of-ways and whatnot. So we're trying to do all we can with the property that we that we own there. So.
Right, and it's so awkward because you do come out to that stop sign, and it's odd because you're going down and people are coming over, and it's just confusing. Okay, so I'm interested, and I'm glad that's happening, and I'm happy to. We'll be happy to see the map of how that's going to transpire. So
I do want to go back to something you said. You said we didn't receive some bids because of capacity, because we were coming late for summer projects.
So to get CM at Risk on board, a lot of times that'll happen the year prior. So if you remember, we brought, I'd have to look at the date, but we brought forth the year 4 CMR selections. So the architect selection and projects were in April 13, 2020. I don't have the date listed on here, but I can get that. But typically, much sooner than March of the year that you're going into that summer, right? So most of our contractors they're booking their schedules up throughout the year, and their teams are getting dedicated to other districts and people that we.
But we also asked you late to bump up some projects.
Yeah.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why I was trying to get to.
Gotcha.
does anybody have any additional? Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm not done yet. So I got.
Yep, moving on. I said moving on.
You got me for a while.
Okay, so I've got 4 GMPs that we're bringing forward tonight for discussion, and what I figured I'd do tonight to help a little bit with time. There's a lot of things that these 4 projects have in common. So I'm going to hit on those first, and then I will hit the specifics of each individual one and answer questions. So for all 4 of these GMPs, Pogue is the CMAR, Huckabee is the architect. All of these projects are in budget. The GMP process was presented to the board in February 2018, and we have followed that process. And all projects have been advertised and competitively bid to subcontractors. Pogue has scoped the bids and provided a GMP for each project. And all of these will be presented to the board next Monday night as consent items. So From there, I'll start with the first one is Homestead Elementary 20-year refresh. This is one of our typical 20-year refresh scopes. This is a 2-summer project. The approach is sealing up and sealing down. So sealing up summer 1, sealing down summer 2. This is kind of what we've been doing on large majority of our 20-year refreshes. And the GMP presented by Polk Construction is $9,068,178. And with that, I'll answer any questions on Homestead Elementary.
Okay, I'm just going to open this up for questions. Do y'all have questions?
It's really going to apply to all of them. Are we going to run into issues with materials because of all of the damages that have been statewide?
So last year we had to deal with COVID, and now we have to deal with the plumbing issues. It's hard to tell at this point. The good news is we're bringing this GMP forward in March, whereas we're planning for the summer. So the long lead items will be procured for this summer. The other good thing about doing sealing up, I mean, we're not doing a lot of the restrooms and whatnot this summer. So I can't answer the question definitively other than I think the plumbing market will bounce back once some of the supplies end up down here in Texas where they're needed. So,
are there any other issues? People have had drywall or whatever surfaces, industrial issues interior things besides plumbing have also had a lot of hits.
Right.
So we don't expect that?
Because this is so fresh, that hasn't reached my desk yet, right? Okay. So the COVID delays we still have some of those every now and then, and it's random. It's, this supplier had to shut down or this supplier. But we'll just have to see. And I do think by the time we get into the summer months, I don't think, drywall is not a long lead item. They can typically go and get that when it's needed and bring it to the site. So I don't anticipate there being any issues. Now, if our contractors if they raise the flag and say, hey, we're going to have some problems, then I'll definitely let everybody know. But, yeah.
Thank you. Please do. Please keep us apprised. Does anybody have any questions down here? Ms. Cox, Ms. Lasan?
I have a quick question.
And Ms. Prosney.
Sorry. When are we going to start? What's the start date? We just gave you 3.5 extra days. So.
That's right. So we'll start as soon as the building is available. So, yeah, absolutely.
I like to see the workers there right when that bell rings. They were out there. They were at Hebron that day.
Yeah,
remember?
They were. Yeah.
And that was so exciting because really the things started happening.
Right.
As the kid.
Well, they thought they were going to have a short summer. It ended up they did not.
Right. Okay.
We are just as excited about the extra time as the students are excited about getting out early. So
I'd just like to make a general point. Ms. Hassett had a general question. I think that, and I'm saying this for a reason publicly. I mean, if you look at a board meeting tonight and what we're going to approve for you to put into consent, you see a couple schools on here and you say, hey, we're investing in schools that may have different socioeconomics. And the fact is, if you look at us holistically over the last 4 years, and I would say even more, Ms. Prosnick's always been good about the document that we have that created these standards and these processes. And we're going to talk a little bit later tonight about, construction services audit. Don't worry about that. It's nothing to be nervous about. We've made significant investments in Vickery, DeGan, Hedrick, Polzer, Valley Ridge for STEM. I mean, we've made substantial investments in many of these campuses, more so than we have in others, except for when you look at the high schools. If you look at the high schools, you see big activities, but we've made pretty significant investments across the districts, I think with equity and consideration to the proper parameters that are required for us. So you don't just say, I'm going to invest in a school because this is the socioeconomics in the facility. You invest in the school because of the 20-year refresh program that we put together that Jenny did kind of champion, as you know. And so it's important for people to see that holistically. This is just a small portion of what we've been doing over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think some could say beyond this seated board, back even into 2008, into that bond and some of the investments that were made in campuses that have now resulted in common things like arenas or whatever we're calling activity centers, fine arts facilities, those types of things where there's commonness across all the high school levels, for example. So, thanks.
So, Mr. Miller, as I think what you're alluding to is we use a document that's updated annually, our facilities assessment, to make the decisions on what should move next and next. It's not an arbitrary thing. It is a documented process as far as needs of and which campus is the neediest
It's a
at
true
that time.
data-driven decision.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to make the point that that data-driven document was also helped in preparation by members of our community,
Yes.
not just,
The original walkthroughs.
right, not just the sitting trustees when all of that was occurring and this board and these board members here or staff. There was a heavy community involvement in those walkthroughs and those eyes and ears on the ground. So just wanted to make a point of that.
Well, and this is where, what I bring up, the fine arts situation at LHS, where when we went into this situation, we looked at this across the board as we built this document and said, do we have parity now?
Right.
And we looked at one situation and said, there's an area where we could probably spend some money, pre-2017 bond, that would make sense for the benefit of that campus and to make sure that it had the equal, it's a sound system that caught on fire or something like that, right? I mean, there's a bunch of issues. So that there are times we make exceptions for an event that transpires. That did transpire. It was an equitable thing to do, but I just remember Jeff, and you probably weren't here, Randy, but anyway,
yeah.
we're here. Yeah, I mean, there was a fire, everything. So that would be a situation where we would look at it and go, hey, we need to fix this.
Go.
Ready for the next one? Okay.
Next one.
The next one should be easy. It's Homestead Elementary School playground replacement. So this is a main playground replacement, so there is no pre-K playground at Homestead. There is an existing shade structure, and we are working around that to maximize the amount of playground that's covered by that shade structure. This work will occur this summer. Excuse me, and that's one reason why you see this as a separate GMP item. Same group will be out there working on it, but this allows us to get this project completed this summer and close this project out, pay retainage, get the savings returned to us if there are any. The GMP presented for this project is $201,523, and with that, I'll answer any questions.
Slides are
Okay.
expensive.
Does anybody have any? No questions? Okay. Keep
All right.
moving on.
Right to the next one. So we have another 20-year refresh. This one's at Southridge Elementary School. Again, traditional scope for our 20-year refresh. 2 summers, summer 1 ceiling up and summer 2 ceiling down. That was the approach. And the GMP presented is $9,063,691. And with that, I'll answer any questions on Southridge.
Are we going to keep the salmon color?
No, we are not.
Good.
We're slowly but surely getting rid of that, yeah.
Okay. Any questions, anyone? Okay, Mr. Pite, moving on.
All right, my last one. Lakeview Middle School electrical upgrades. So this is replacing electrical system components identified by that facilities assessment document and then verified by the engineering team. The work is to take place this summer, and the GMP presented is $1,072,334. And with that,
I don't remember any, I don't remember any middle schools being part of the 2017 bond project.
you're absolutely right. So the next bond will be quite a few middle schools will be up in the next bond, and it just had to do with age. So I think the last ones that were done were like McCamey, Briar Hill, some of those, and then there was a gap, right?
Right.
So you'll see quite a few that are due. Should we go for another bond?
So this goes to my Frankenstein question I always ask.
Okay, so keep in mind that electrical systems are a different time frame than 20 years. I
Okay.
think it's 30 years.
They're 30. So this will not interfere. Do you, I mean, I don't want to, you know what I'm.
Agree, I do, yeah. And some of these are tough because like Lakeview's had some piecemeal pieces, right?
Right,
We
yeah.
did the skylight a few years ago, and you know,
The
we're
new
doing
offices that are,
flooring.
that are
right,
beautiful.
some flooring, some restrooms, things like that. But it's we're trying to not. That's the challenge we have is trying to not throw away life, right, in building
Right.
components that are there, but to try and package up as much as we can and do it as a 20-year refresh. So, yeah.
Okay. Ms. Cox?
So I'm going to take the reverse approach on this since we're using the same companies, and it's 2 20-year refreshes, even though the schools really aren't in close proximity. But could there be some cost savings because they're buying, we're probably doing a similar color scheme, I would presume. I mean, maybe not, but it seems to be that's the pattern that we're taking. Would there not be some cost savings because we can buy more flooring or materials?
So at
for
this
both
point,
schools?
excuse me. At this point, these are the GMPs, which are made up of the actual bids themselves. So, and that's, we are in budget on all 4 of these because there probably was some savings, but there won't be any additional savings from what we presented here tonight. I mean, even though it's the same CM at risk, there are different subcontractors that bid on different projects. They're looking at their workload as well and what they can tackle.
In a GMP, GMP is a guaranteed maximum price.
Correct.
You wouldn't have a potential savings?
Yeah, is the 3.5% not built into that?
So we have contingencies built in, but what we're not going to see is subcontractors coming to us now that they bid the project and saying, "Hey, I'll give you a deal because I'm working on the one down the street." You're not going to see that, right? We've put this out on the street, the drawing set, and they've said, "For that project, here's my bid." Okay, and so that's kind of what the sub's saying the price is. They're absolutely. My goal is for all these to have some sort of savings coming back because we didn't have to utilize all the contingency funds.
Right.
But what I meant by the bids was that the subs have said, "Here's what my cost is. I'm a plumber. Here's what my cost is to do this project here."
So, and this could be the bid process, to Ms. Cox's point, that's slightly frustrating, that the same contractor is getting both of those projects and that there can be no additional, does that make sense? If it's just the bid process, it's the bid process, but.
Well, I can tell you both for the CM at risk and the subs, it's a competitive bidding. And so, for those 3 projects we looked at tonight for CMAR, they all had the opportunity to come in and if they really want the job, to come in and sharpen their pencil. Same with these subs. And I can tell you we got a lot of coverage. Craig can speak to it, but we got a lot of subcontractor coverage on all these projects, which is good. It shows that subs want to work for LISD, which is where we want to be.
So the fundamental issue here is you put all these out to bid. I think to Ms. Cox's point and Ms. Crosby's point, everybody bids. You bid on 5 projects. You don't know if you're going to get them all. You think you're going to get one. You give a price. Under the local government code and the procurement processes and GMP, that's the price. Just so happens that they've gotten a couple, right? Our thinking, the way that we buy, if Dr. Rogers is going to get a patio put on, and Ms. Cox and me and you, and we all use the same contractor, we'd like to think that we can get some type of savings. Now, I think we're dealing with some legal parameters here in procurement that, if there's savings because they can do some things faster and you guys can provide that benefit, great. But at this point, we're not able to, they all bid on these things thinking they may just get 1, not 3.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think we have the opportunity to go back to the sub and say, "Hey, give us a deal. We gave you 5 projects." And
Best and final.
So we bid out the CM at risk, and then they bid out their subcontractors, and they're taking, and it's all part of the bid process, which is legally what's required. So.
And keep in mind, construction, a lot of these subcontractors, it comes down to materials and labor, right? So you still need the same materials, and you still need the same crew, the different crew. Now you got 2 crews kind of spread out, right? So they're not saying, "Hey, we're going to split this one crew between your 2 we don't want that because that'll be a worse product for us. So, I don't know how else to explain. I see Craig nodding back there. I don't think we really have the ability to go and kind of work deals with them after the fact.
We believe this is the best deal for the district, which is why we bid it.
And follows the government code.
And follows the government code.
Okay, does anybody have any additional questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Sure. Mr. Kobeck.
Yes, moving on to technology report.
Thanks, Randy.
Come on, you're getting called out.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. I had Chris Langford join us for this topic. So this topic, we have several technology ones in a row. This particular topic involves our secondary data center that's going to be built at Memorial Elementary. If you recall, during our 2017 bond planning, one of the projects that we were looking to do is basically replicate our data center that we have here at LISDAC. And just to put it into some context, I mean, it's important. With the winter storm that happened, I mean, our team, we had a pipe break in the back, and there was water running into the data center subfloor faster than we could pump it out. I mean, we were this close to being down probably for several weeks. So we really got to get this project done. So Chris has been doing a great job working with Craig in procurements and contract to identify all the equipment that's needed. So obviously, with the construction of that building underway, our goal would be to wrap up the procurement process, that we can bring something forward to the board soon, within the next couple of months, so that we can actually get the equipment ordered and actually get it in the building this summer so that we can light it up for the beginning of the 21-22 school year. So the funds for this project would be coming from the 2017 technology bond funds. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
Okay, let's start on this side of the room. Ms. Cox?
I can't agree with you more. We cannot get this up fast enough. So my only question is, just out of curiosity, will someone be housed there to monitor the data center at Memorial Elementary?
No one will be housed there. We will have an office area when we need to do work, but no one will have their permanent office there. It'll be monitored through the electronic tools that we have in place.
Ms. Hassan or Mr.
Nope, no questions.
Mr. Miller?
I agree, it can't happen fast enough. I would like, though, that when we see the bids, that we see this this was the rubric, this is what the bidders, right, that we see a level of detail that we're used to with the previous presenter, so that we can have some visibility to all of that.
I will make a comment on that, Mr. Miller. The components, this data center is going to be an active data center, so it's replicating basically the systems that we have in place. So it's really going to be the systems that are here we have to have over there. So we're going to follow the procurement process that best aligns to those pieces, but certainly it'll be a bid tab showing the results.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, Ms.
No
Hassett?
questions, thank you.
Ms. Prosnick?
And this actually may not be your question. I'm just kind of curious. When we did the bid for Memorial, then Josie Lane, we just included the physical portion in that GMP, right? And these are just the things that are going inside of it, right?
That's correct.
And we're not included in any FFE or anything else for
No,
the campus.
it was separate.
Just
No,
putting that out there in the world more than anything else.
Yeah, we expected Mr. Colbeck to use his technology bond funds to take care of this technology.
That's right. I just want to.
He would
Put
have
it out
liked to have.
I bet he would.
Well, he's using it on the screens, though.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, and I don't have any questions, so moving on.
All right, thank you. The next two items are phone system related. The first item, let me make sure I have the right order. The first item is regarding putting in a phone automation system to basically help manage our current phone system. So how it's set up right now, we're using Cisco Call Manager. All of the move add changes that happen manually. And as you can imagine, especially at the beginning of the school year, when you're dealing with new staff that are hired, if you have, let's say, 400 or 500 staff that are hired, you have people coming in, people coming out, you're moving people from maybe different assignments, and it is just, it's a ton of work. And we got to come up with a way to make this much more proficient. And I think one of the things that kind of came to light too through COVID is the importance of making sure everybody has an extension that they can be called and contacted. So that workload has kind of gone up. So what this is essentially trying to look at solutions that are out there to help automate that process. So it could integrate into our ERP system and pick up where those assignments happen and automatically provision those extensions and other information tied to that user. So again, we're working with procurement and contracts to get pricing for the products that we think will work. This would be our current thinking is we would tie this with our 2017 bond project as well. The next item I'm going to talk about is some phone hardware that we have to purchase. But again, this would help make our processes much more efficient and get us moving in the right direction so we can have communications up faster every year. Any questions?
It's actually for this one and the next item. What is the life expectancy of this?
Of the automation, once the project is implemented, it would be more of an ongoing like support type cost. So you're going to pay for the licensing. Obviously, we have to have a server to run it on, but there's going to be some sort of operational cost that we'll have to work back into our technology budget, and that we're already accounting for. As far as the phones, the hardware itself, you're typically talking about 8 years.
No questions. I do have a question. So what would the time frame be on this? Because I can tell you from experience, this happened at Flower Mountain High School about 2 years ago, that we decided to do the phone system change right when school started. And you talk about frustrated front administrative people. It was pretty hot and heavy. So hopefully all this will be put in place way before school starts and everyone knows how to use the system. And so I just wanted to see the time frame.
Yeah, the goal on this is to get it ordered the week that it's approved by the board, if it is approved by the board. And then there's no physical hardware for this automation system. It would just run on our existing virtual servers in our data center. So it would be set up as quickly as the team that we're contracting with would come in and set up the hardware and train our team. Hopefully, we're shooting for the beginning of July.
And what is that implementation process? I mean, is it done simultaneously, meaning right then, or how long
Yes.
does that process take?
Yeah, we're expecting the process to take 30 to 60 days. And like I said, since there's no hardware to be ordered, it can start very quickly once it's approved by the board.
Ms. Hassan, do you have any questions? Mr. Miller?
You're not talking about are you talking B and C now? Or are you just talking about B?
B.
No questions, Mr. Miller, on B?
No.
Okay. And my only question was, do y'all provide training for staff on, because I wouldn't know how to, if I had a voice over IP that came to my phone. I mean, does it, I have one at home, but it just, I don't ever answer it. It just goes to voicemail, and then I check the voicemails because I don't know how to do it. I mean, honestly. So I'm just thinking.
That's why Catherine hasn't called you back.
Yeah, so if I haven't called you back, I'm sorry. But, so is that something that there's a training aspect in place that you can push out to staff, or?
Well, there's a couple different elements to that. One would be, obviously the phone itself. So as you replace handsets, the team that comes in and basically provides an instructional sheet on how to use the phone, obviously what the numbers are, how to set up your voicemail box, stuff like that, or even if you have a new number provision. With the COVID element, where people had the ability to have a phone ring their computer, that we've kept up with that training provided to staff on how to log in and how to answer your phone, how to set it to do not disturb, let's say if you're teaching. So there's training on both sides. It's really the handset as well as the soft client. That said, obviously folks that are in the front offices, they have a more complex phone experience, right? Where they have to transfer and they have to park calls and so forth. So that's where somebody on Chris's team would actually work with that person on how to do that.
Very good. Okay, thank you. I need to job shadow them. Anyway, well, thank you, because that's important.
Career
I want to
out
make
could be an opportunity for
Yes,
you.
I want to make sure that if we're providing this to our staff, that they have every opportunity to know exactly how to use it to be the most beneficial for them and to be efficient and effective in what they're trying to do with it. So instead of just adding something else onto them. So,
And to be clear, this automation system is not going to be used by the campuses. This would be used by technology staff only. So for this piece, nothing would really change for the campuses.
Okay, perfect.
But the endpoints are changes?
That'll be the next item.
Okay, that's what I think that, because you guys are using computer terms here, and Ms. Sells, what they're saying is the next item is the phones.
Okay.
Right, the phones. This is
Used to be called terminals by AT&T. Now endpoints, and it's really the phones.
It's the phones. So what we're looking for is when somebody's hired and they start into a room that, boom, their phone is ready, their extension's ready, their voicemail's ready, where we're not waiting several weeks to go through that process. So on the back end, this is software that'll help us automate that. Sorry if I didn't explain that
And
well.
if somebody, you were saying if somebody moves, like if someone moves from this room to that room, that y'all are programming it to do that quickly
Yes.
without.
Whereas in olden days, they would have had to have switched phone numbers.
Well, they would have probably filled out a work order, and we would have worked that
Be
process.
done more
and-
manually versus automated.
Manual.
Very
Every
good.
change would have been manual, or is
Okay.
manual currently.
Okay. So no more questions on?
Next one.
Yep,
We're
next
getting
one.
to phones.
Okay,
Get
so
to
the next
points.
item are the phones itself. So what we, if you recall in the bond project, it was actually under safety and security. We had a budgeted amount to replace our phone system. And what we did is we did that in, really there's two different phases to this. The first phase, if you recall, I think the number was 53 or 52, I can't remember, campuses. So we replaced those. Those had the old Avaya phone system in place. And then we already had 20 campuses that had a newer, Cisco replacement. So those are now at that 8-year mark, and the phones are end of life. So what this would be is basically a project to replace the phones, the handsets at those locations with the newest product. And again, we'd be using 2017 technology bond funds to complete the project. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Is there, my only question is there a plan then for next year, another 20 locations? Or is this just the last of
This would be the last iteration in this bond cycle. Obviously, it would be something if there's a future bond, we're going to have to address telephony hardware again.
Okay. No other questions? Moving on.
All right. I'm going to ask Ms. Sons to join us on this one.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep, thank you, Chris. So as Dana is coming up, in the 2017 bond project we had on the devices, that was really broken into two different buckets, so to speak. We had the one-to-one devices, which was our 1-to-X, and then we had what we called program-specific devices. So for program-specific devices, this would be devices that are in specific computer labs that we know they need a certain type of technology. It might be a higher-end Windows lab, or it might be a business ed lab that's using Microsoft and Microsoft Office, or a very specific application that requires Windows. It might be in some of our departments that are more Windows-centric. So what this is essentially looking at replacing any devices that are 5 years old and older this coming year. And I will also say that this is, we didn't bring this forward as a full package last year, really with COVID going on. So we're on some borrowed time on some of the equipment that's out there already. It's very likely 6 or 7 years old. But this would get us to a point where if we can get the stuff purchased this summer, Dana's team would work on getting it deployed, get the lab switched out, and get that new equipment in where it's needed. And I think the part of this is obviously we're working with procurements and contracts again to go through the process to price out the units that we need to get our best value. And what I'm hoping for is we can pull this together and bring it to the board in April as an actionable item or a consent item. Mostly because if you think back with the beginning of the school year, the response from last spring, the supply chain, it's still not very good in the world of technology. It's better, but it's still not very good. So our goal would be to bring this back in April for the board and try to get the stuff ordered and get it in this summer. Any questions?
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions, Ms. Cox?
Yes, so all I would ask is that when this comes back to the board is we have a extensive breakdown of what equipment you're buying, what either it's for a school, a campus, a teacher, whatever. I would really like to know where this device is utilized.
Absolutely.
And where at.
I feel like I should ask you a question since you've said this whole time it's 9 o'clock.
She doesn't mind if you don't.
I know.
Yeah.
Now, what you say makes sense though, as far as the supply chain. You still can't go to Best Buy and buy a laptop off the shelf anymore. So I'm sure it's bad, but Anyway, I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Miller?
I would just echo Ms. Cox that, you show us the inventory, show us, we've done this before when we replaced all the Windows devices. We did it before when we upgraded things at the career centers. Pretty standard. This is outside, I think it says it's outside the normal 1 to X type thing, so it's special programs. Just so from a fiduciary perspective, we can say, we've got, now, totally understand too, you heard Randy talk about contingencies. I'm sure you all have some contingencies as well because you're able to produce a lot of devices at an accelerated period of time when we needed it. So, don't be shy about contingencies or whatever you would call it here, excess inventory in case of emergency or whatever.
Ms. Haskett?
I was really just had a general statement. As we're starting to review some of the curriculum and programs that we might start shifting to virtual, we would need to start analyzing what the changing needs would be. Architecture still is going to need to be at the Career Tech centers because we need those, but some of the Microsoft Office programs we could start potentially offering also. So we're going to have to start evaluating some of the future needs based on things that we might start offering for virtual.
That's a good point. That's something we've started working on. We've met with our content leaders, elementary and secondary, and really started to look at what do you need. If you can't do it on an iPad, what is it you can't do and what do you need? But we have I'll just be direct, we have a lot of work to do on that, and that's a focus for our department, Dr. Rapp's department, and we got to get this done because it's very hard to forecast what you need without having those kinds of standards in place, and it's tough because the target's changing as we've experienced this in the last year. So we do have work to do there, but I think what we've done is we went through each of the inventory lists and looked at where are these devices currently being used for classes that are running right now as we know it, and that's what we're replacing. So the other stuff, that are maybe shared devices on carts, things like that, I just want to be clear, those aren't included in here. We're going to have to address that yet through that standards work.
Where will that live? Will that live in an EdSpec document? Will that live in a...
Well, how it's lived in the past is really a document that we use in technology that looks at it and says, okay, if you're, like, for example, probably with some of our best standards we have are in special ed, working with Dr. Talbert and her team saying, okay, if you need this, this, and this in a specific special ed room, we know what that is based upon, how many kids are in there. And so we have a document within our department that guides those standards. But some of that stuff is changing. If you have classes that run virtual, or even at the Collegiate Academy, too, is another example where sometimes you might run into some compatibility issues, although that's gotten a lot better in the last year as Flash has been, retired. But I see it as living in our technology department. We would use that to guide basically what we need each year, making some assumptions which classes run based upon that class and what's needed.
Okay.
And I would just say Mr. Kobeck and his staff have done a great job of trying to figure out, okay, we've got carts now, but do we need carts in the future? Hey, we give people in offices a desktop and a mobile device, but we're moving to where everyone just gets one mobile device that can plug into a display on their so those are the kind of discussions that he's having with leadership team as far as future. Really, last year we had of course, before COVID hit, and then we just had to use everything we had. Right. We had planned to make some of these adjustments, in future purchases that, okay, now that every kid has an iPad, or a K through 3 kid has an iPad assigned that stays in the classroom, do you need as many mobile carts? Those are the kind of discussions that we continue to have, led by him and his team. So,
thank you.
Does anybody have any additional questions? Have we had any experience of learning loss due to devices
being old?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think you might run into some performance. The things we have out there we keep up. They're updated. They work. but it might be a little bit slower. So I think if there's learning loss, it might be because it took somebody, 3-4 minutes to log in versus it being fast and prompt. So I think there's a risk there for that if you have slow performing equipment. I know that's a frustration I hear from, teachers that are managing labs that, God, these things are, so slow. So that's why we're really trying to not let them go over 5 years to get that stuff replaced. And, on a Windows device too, just with your group policy and some of the other things that happen in the background, they do take longer to log in. So that's a challenge in some of the, program-specific labs.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. And moving on, Mr. Miller.
Okay, thank you. This is a follow-on discussion to our audit process. Ms. Prosnick does a great job of taking copious notes and writing out the item tonight along with Ms. Bay. And all the notes from our meetings are again made available to the board. Tonight, just kind of a status. We had Gibson here, I think, last month. Is it that far already? To present the board audit where we audit ourselves. The board has provided their feedback to the final presentation. Ms. Sells and I will go through that and consolidate it. There are some things going to be pretty easy where we're not going to do anything. And then there are things where we need to talk about what the plan is, especially as we kind of complete our work, right, and potential officer changes and therefore the committee changes. Tonight, and then there are two, we do have the employee services audit continuing and the PEMS audits continuing. Small delays, COVID issues, weather issues, et cetera, but other than that, we're on track with both of those to be completed. This item tonight is to follow up on the risk assessment that we did. We hired Gibson to do a risk assessment last year. There were top 10 items there. We met as a committee last week to talk about what we might recommend to all of you for us to put out to bid for next year. And we concluded 3 things, and we're going to split those between Ms. Hassett and Ms. Prosnick, or who, have you guys decided who's going to do which one?
Go ahead. Okay, I'll take construction. So one of the areas that we're recommending tonight to put out to bid would be construction management. It was one of the higher scores on the risk assessment. The committee used the risk assessment just kind of like as we use the facilities assessment to kind of guide some of the work. But the construction management was definitely one. And one of the benefits of, believe it or not, of doing it now as we're winding down the 2017 bond that we felt was it was an opportunity to look at our processes, and some of them, as noted, are very manual processes, and to see how we could mitigate some of that. But then we could use some of those recommendations on a smaller number of projects to work out any kinks, to make any future bond projects or bond proposals be even more efficient than they are now. We're always trying to be more nimble and more flexible.
You do the next one or the last one?
What?
You do the next one or
The next one? Oh, okay. Next one, student services, which includes enrollment, transfers, student attendance, truancy. It is mostly, the audit would mostly focus on the discipline aspect, as it's the most easy to track. And that was another one of the higher scores on the risk assessment. I think that department has never received an audit, and I think that it would help us also with some of the goals that we put forward next year that we talked about for Dr. Rogers' audit.
And we also wanted to do at least one item that directly impacted students,
Yes.
which is why we picked the student services, and it pairs really well with Mr. Morris's hiring. And then for the co-curriculars, it will be a much easier, quicker one. It also pairs well with the training that the district has had PTAs help with boosters, And it hopefully will be some of the same staff time, so we won't duplicate some of the same staff time. It'll be a small audit that we can bundle in with others. So those are the 3 that we recommended.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Lasan.
Let's go for it.
So the co-curricular activities, so you did say one thing that kind of perked my interest, and that's the booster clubs and things. And maybe, Mr. Kosh, that kind of falls under your realm, I think, right? I would love to see, because I've had, other parents say this to me, is, they spend a lot of money in booster clubs. Where does it go? Who is auditing these? Do we have any purview to audit or to take a look at a booster club's funds, the way they run their funds? PTA is kind of different because they audit themselves. I mean, they have a very, if you've ever been on a PTA board, they have a very set out process, of auditing themselves. But,
That's a great question, and it might be why we want to perform this audit.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I think,
do we have,
well,
can we look at
so
booster club monies?
here's the thing.
Yes.
Here's the thing that, they can add to this. We have pretty vigorous discussions, as you can imagine, the 3 of us. One of the things I learned a couple years ago at TASB, I think it was, all the PTAs and all the boosters have to file their budgets with the CFO's office. Now, the question is whether
the PTAs do?
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's somebody in the front office that's responsible, and if you do a fundraiser, there's also a form that you have to fill out.
Yes. Now, this is not pointing the finger at finance, but does the finance department look at them, right? And so what we're suggesting, this is a statewide issue, by the way. It is not just we're not saying there's a problem in LISD. We're saying, hey, it's a statewide issue. It came out when we all ranked the top 10. We think we should look at it. This is part of it. But yes, so to those parents, yes, there is a process. As a matter of fact, we're recommending to you that we go out and get bids to audit this and take a look at how we're doing it to make sure we have effective processes so that, and I think we're all aware of where we've seen, whether it's PTA or different boosters, maybe, what's going on, why do we have those issues? This will help us make sure we have good processes in place and good communication with our finance department where those should be housed, and maybe, I don't know what the recommendation is, we audit 5 a year or look at 5 a year, whatever. And maybe Mr. Youngs has some experience he'll bring to the table as we do the audit.
Well, and
I've
I
been
think
on
that
multiple PTA boards, and I've never been treasurer, but I have never heard that.
Yep. I have been, filed it.
I have never heard that.
I guess I need a point of clarification because Ms. Hassett mentioned co-curricular activities, but most of the discussion's about a separate topic on the scoring matrix, and that is booster club. So, are they connected? Absolutely. Is that the intent to connect co-curricular and booster clubs? I just was wanting to make sure I understood.
Was one of the in the risk assessment, one of the bullet points was the manual processes for cash collection were noted in many of the interviews. The other part is the other. Hold a second. Sorry, it's very tiny print. It was also about from campus group sponsors. That's really where that booster club, if you will, element kind of falls into. And it's also about making sure that we have good processes. I think that that's, for me, that's the biggest issue, is I think that there are definitely some booster clubs and some organizations that have some great processes. And there are some that don't. I would say also that if parents are really concerned, I'd like to think you can go to a meeting and see the financials.
That's absolutely right.
I have been a treasurer for several, and trust me, my financials, I always bought the big book, and I brought the single sheet. And that's not, so it's not about a got you like any of our audits are. This is not about a got you, but it is about making sure that we do have processes in place, because there are some implications to students if booster clubs aren't doing their job. They're UIL implications. And so,
And I guess
that was-
really,
yeah.
I think I remember what you're talking about now, but we didn't discuss it in our meeting. When we originally had a needs assessment, they actually did have co-curriculars and boosters separate. We had
Yeah,
talked
I'm
about it
looking at
in
the
the needs
original.
assessment as doing them at the same time. And so that's what we're recommending is co-curriculars and boosters at the same time.
And I would like to think
Should've-
that, that through this discussion that, that LISD on their website does have guidelines for boosters, and you can print those out and follow those. But I think that there's an education piece, and I think part of that education piece is having this discussion and making this part of the audit. So.
Yeah, and I would just recommend that before, and of course, just a reminder to the public, that once the board decides these are the three areas, and I don't have any problem with any of the three areas, that, you know, it will be bid out to various companies, and, you know, so, and so my point of that is I think we need to be real specific about what it is we're looking for to create that bid document, particularly for this sort of, you know, it's pretty easy when you talk about construction management, that's pretty clear what, but when you're talking about co-curricular, that's a wide range of stuff, and then you throw in booster clubs, and some booster clubs are tax exempt, some aren't. I mean, so there's some specifics that we better wrap our heads around before we bid it out, is all I'm
So
suggesting.
I think, let me just say, I'm reminded now that I was actually a treasurer once and didn't file it. But I think what happens is like with PEEMS. Part of the problem. You know, one of the things when we're in, as we looked at PEEMS, we thought what we had tried to consider was there might be some data entry issues that over time, you know, there's some things that are manual, or, you know, we could benefit from systems, that there might be just some errors that happen organically over time. I think it's the same thing here. You know, when you become a wrestling booster, whatever, vice president of finance, whatever it's called, and you don't know because nobody told you that, right? I mean, you're just trying to get enough people to want to serve to be on that booster club, let alone knowing that you have to file it with the CFO's office. However, I think once people realize that, there's a level of accountability that comes with transitioning to new officers and making sure that they have an avenue to consult with the proper resources to do things in the appropriate way. Because I don't think anybody is setting out to do something wrong. It's rather just putting in good, efficient processes. And I think pivoting to that cornerstone in the lower left, resource stewardship, we always point to Mr. Young's, but this is an example where it fits within that well.
So for the consent item that I will send to Ms. Riggle tomorrow morning, when I write that we're recommending, I'm going to put co-curricular activities and booster clubs. So to Dr. Rogers' point, I think that when we, and looking for input from the board here, when we put it out for bid, what is the board's desire for that? Am I correct, Doctor, that those parameters?
Yeah, and I think it probably would behoove the board to seek some input from Mr. Kaj and Mr. Ford and Ms. Drinkwater and some of those folks before you write the criteria. They're the experts, and so I know you're trying to make sure the processes are solid, and believe it or not, some of what I think you're wanting to fix, you don't have the whole picture of. They will. And so my point is, utilize us to help craft where it's a good process. And I know that's your goal, and it's our goal.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. It did make the top 10, right, which we all, administration was, everybody was involved in. There's now some people are in new roles. The objective here is that in the next meeting in consent, you would agree that we're going to go out to bid.
Yeah, that's it.
Once we get the bids, you can say no, right? But that we would go out to bid. We wanted to have sufficient time in anticipation that, I mean, the way that the policy is that the board vice president is the chair of the committee, and the president establishes the members of that committee. We wanted to basically complete our work on the recommendations prior to that May meeting. We can do that.
June.
May, whatever that is, whenever that is. And so our thought was, once the board approves this, we would get with Mr. Martin, and there are 3 companies that this would go to. We approved that, I think, in December or January, and he would work with that. Now, we can very quickly, we'll have this ready for consent. We can start having a meeting with Mr. Martin and Mr. Kaj, or whoever you recommend, to zero in on the, I don't know if it's an RFP. Is it an RFP? RFQ, to make sure that we're, and Ms. Bay as well, make sure we're doing it properly. And listen, we want this to be a team effort where we're partnering together like we are on the other audits for the benefit of the entire district, right? We don't, if, for example, construction management, we didn't pick that because we think there's a problem, and we didn't pick procurement because we didn't think there's a problem. I mean, we looked at the priorities that the board had established and felt like that this represented the kind of gist of where we were at as a board as it relates to goals and other things.
No, I think the choices make sense, Mr. Miller. And I don't think that, Ms. Prosnick has to have the answers and all the input before the board approves the consent agenda item. I think my point is, at some point, we need to provide y'all some input to help create
Before
a better
Mr. Martin,
to create a better RFQ process when you put the bid out.
If we then get a consent approval from on consent next week, and you can pull it and discuss it, we can begin working with Mr. Martin in anticipation of some type of requirements, and then he doesn't need a meeting for us once it passes. If it passes next week, he doesn't need a meeting for us to go out to bid. He puts the requirements together with us. The requirements
Only thing I disagree with that on is per Dr. Rogers' point, when we put it out, if the board approves and it goes out to bid, there need to be parameters.
That's correct, and I think we would work with delegation from the board on those parameters with Mr. Martin and the appropriate staff.
Okay.
And I think, you all have trusted us so far, and I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to be transparent. And we're really going to follow staff recommendations on what do we need to know from you guys to get this an effective RFQ out. And we would really follow probably a Q&A process from you all as to what you think you need from us, and then you make the recommendations from there.
Yeah, we'll make the parties available to the board committee when y'all are discussing that they can sit around the table with you and Mr. Martin, and y'all can brainstorm what it looks like. I guess one statement that I need to ask Mr. Martin.
He's right back there.
Is Mr. Miller made mention about we already have the 3 companies, but is the 3 companies still the set audit companies?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that we weren't.
Yes, I
messed up on
neglected
that.
in my writing of this.
Yeah.
I should have put that it
Okay.
was renewed in January of 2021.
Okay, I
And
wanted to
I think Ms. Bay and I
I've already
discussed
made a
it,
note.
and we
Okay.
made sure that we followed the legal advice and procurement advice.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm usually the one that forgets, Dr. Rogers, not you. So
Ms. Cox has
we
come.
did do that.
So I just have a comment for the board and also a thank you. I'm very appreciative of the work that the committee's doing, and I think these are some great choices for us to review. So I'm very appreciative of you all meeting tirelessly to come up with some good suggestions. My only comments would be is that as we do this, is we set some timelines for ourselves. We may not know what that looks like, but I like timelines. I don't like open-ended where we have things. So I would really be appreciative of some timelines. Budget, we get a budget for everything else we do. We need to make a budget for this. So you guys pick 3. Maybe we can't do 3. Maybe we just do 2. So what is our budget for this? Because we're asking the district to make budgets. We need to follow the same rules. And the last but not least is to work around the district's time. We talk about frustration and tiresome. So is the leadership team. And so I'm just asking that as we're doing these things, we put a lot on them, doing the PEMS and all that. and they're trying to work with the COVID and Snowmageddon, it's Snowvid, whatever we're calling it now.
And I think that the
timeframe.
timelines don't have to all be the same.
Right.
If we
No.
choose these as the 3 priorities, we can stage these out.
Yes.
And also budget them out. And I think that that's really important in terms of.
Budget is part of when we come back, that we may come back and be like, we are just doing
Right.
construction. I mean,
Yes.
Great points, though.
yeah.
Yeah, great point.
So I think, great points, not surprised. So we'll know more about budget when we hear back, like we did last time, we needed to learn.
Yeah.
But it's fair point. Timeline, we'll probably model the same type of thing we did before. We had some timelines in place for all 3 audits around the June, July timeframe. Honestly, we missed them all because of COVID, data requirements, I mean, different things. We didn't miss them all to the detriment of LISD, but we ran into some issues.
There's
So
also some
I
staff
think it's,
request as well.
I think it's fair, we'll put forward the recommendations once we get the bids back and present to y'all, what do you think? If you want to move forward, you'll see the timelines. I think we actually asked for that in the last bids, didn't we? And so you'll see those, and you'll be a part of that process. I mean, there's probably 3 more decision points on this, probably, right? We've got to agree next week, and we got to figure out what the bids are, we got to pick the bidder, we've got a timeline, et cetera.
But really, Ms. Cox brings up a great point that we need to actually come with a budget. What we're talking about is eventual cost.
Right.
The cost and budget are different. So we need, as a board, to say, every year, we're going to
Right.
budget X, Y, Z.
Right.
And then
That's
we're
fair.
going to pick the costs that correlate with that budget. So we actually do need to come up with an actual budget.
Yes.
So
I
was
agree, I
hoping-
think we just don't have the data points yet.
I would
I mean, we
disagree.
could say
As a
we-
budget, I think we need to pick a number that would fit within the overall district budget, and then
I mean, you've kind of seen already what we've already done one and what that cost was.
And that's why I'm comfortable that, I mean, I have no idea what the bids will be, but the scope of work that we have on these first 3 are big. I mean, employee services, beams,
Huge.
the board audit,
It will never cost that much.
and so it'd be surprising if it comes back higher, but, or even the same, but I don't know.
Yeah, but great.
Yeah.
I concur.
But great points, and we'll make sure we maintain fidelity to that.
Okay. Are there
That's
any
it.
other comments or questions? Okay, I think that is the end of our agenda. Let me double sure. And if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 9:47 p.m. Thank you all so much. Be safe going home.